Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. We back. We back like a heart attack. Smoking crack. And I literally clean as a whistle. Yeah, good, but I literally don't have a right. Okay, dude. Like there's literally menu items that are not showing up in OBS now. I'm I'm right clicking things and there are items that are not showing up, dude. Okay, it's all right. I found a workaround. Okay, we're back, folks. We're back like a fucking heart attack. Thank you for coming back, by the way. If you did come back, Zeo Duke, you are awesome. Okay, we're good to go now. GPU's happy, CPU's happy. Let's fucking go. Just gonna do this. There we go. A little bit. What did you do? I unplugged. I unplugged a monitor, so we're only one external monitor and my laptop screen, which it's I don't know. It seems to like that better. Fans going bananas, but everything's stable, so that's fine. Okay, so back to what I'm saying. I need to pound this into people's heads that just because they wear a suit, just because they're perfectly pleasant in their Bloomberg interviews, and they seem like regular Joes almost. These people are legitimately mentally ill. And the reason why they're mentally ill and not just greedy is that their actions will actually lead to their own destruction. You see what I mean? Like when you're mentally ill, you do things that will lead to self-harm, right? An insane person runs into the wall head first and cracks their skull, right? So this is a form of mental illness that, is maybe induced by greed. I don't know what it is. I'm not a fucking professional here, right? So call it whatever you want to call it, whatever. I'm calling it mental illness, right? I'm not a fucking doctor. All right, but this is just how I perceive this because it's inducing self-harm because their insistence that the only people that need to be affected by all the negative things that happen in the economy, their insistence that all that fall onto the backs of the middle class and lower class, that we need to cut entitlements and continue to cut taxes instead of the exact opposite, right? So that he has a customer to sell to. That's the thing. You see, all these guys, they have all these businesses, they have all these services. Well, how the hell are you supposed to sell to anybody if you don't have a fucking customer? And that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. But that's the kind of general gist here is that these guys are actually and eventually, I mean, you want to get the Purge or Mad Max style, right? Eventually, you can only hide in your fucking mansions and your little gated communities so long. There's this they have this idea that they can escape the extreme externalities of their actions, and we know that they can't. They are convinced that they can, and they're convinced that okay, I will take and take and take and take, and if I'm part of the generation that where it finally breaks, I'll be okay. So it's okay. I'm going to continue to take. This is to them. This is all perfectly natural. This is how the world works. This is just how it works. So I need to stress this that these oligarchs are mentally ill and they are inducing self-harm with their destruction. They're full-blown support of right-wing fascism. Dismantle the economy. Is that really going to help? Or I'm sorry, dismantle the democracy. Is that really going to help the economy? Right? Everyone starts turning into serfs and slaves. That's somehow supposed to help industry, the capitalist industry. It's ass backwards. It's self-destructive. And the moment the power shifts, right, and they get the fascist dictatorship that they want so bad, it will immediately start where it's like, well, we don't need this industry, we don't need that industry. We don't need movie theaters that sell Marvel movies because they're not Christian. So all we need is one fucking god awful Christian. I'm fantasizing here, okay? But what I'm just trying to fucking explain to you is that these oligarchs are are hurting themselves. They don't care. It's all about making that number higher. And they are convinced. They are convinced that if you tax me, you're going to hurt the economy. The only solution is to destroy the middle class. Listen to this guy. Listen to what this guy has to say here, and you'll see what I mean. He's a full-blown, he's fully mentally ill, and he's acting against his own self-interest.
Way inflation is not here to stay.
Yeah, we could have a
long term.
Look, I don't have to worry about the long term in my day job, but
Right.
but I will say this: we could have an event. I don't know whether. Hopefully, it's not a war of major powers that bring us together, and you get sacrificial behavior like we got after the Depression and World War II. We could have a financial crisis due to everything I've been talking about. And finally, my generation, I think Paul Jones made the point, we've given nothing. We've given nothing. And now we want to screw our grandchildren. Finally, we get the memo. So no, I'm not that pessimistic.
So, if you're not paying attention, you're like, oh, wait a minute. This guy, he's concerned about the future. He's concerned about his grandchildren. He's concerned about everyone's grandchildren. He wants to pay back the debt and fix inflation and all that. Listen to what he proposes as his solution.
And I'll say the other thing I'm optimistic about.
Welcome back strategy.
Jerome Powell normalizing interest rates.
Yeah.
We now have a hurdle rate for investment in this country. So I think the allocation of capital, ironically, if we don't go to the zombie route, and if we don't continue the drunken stuff, ironically, I think
he was about to say drunken spending. He's equating welfare, WIC programs that help the poor and feed the sick and make sure people get health care and all kinds of things. He's saying that this is the major issue. There's so much money in Social Security. We have to take it. We have to rob it. We have to destroy Social Security to save our economy. There's no other choice. There's no other choice, guys. Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I've never worked a day in my life. I mean, that's just how it's going to be. But obviously the solution is for you to lube up and bend on over. I mean, tax the rich. Oh my goodness. What are you, a communist?
It could be a force for good, because instead of funding a bunch of nonsense and bubble stuff, the capital gets.
I believe the nonsense and bubble stuff might have been the COVID relief packages.
More properly allocated. So, look, I'm open-minded to a really bad outcome, and I'm open-minded to a decent outcome.
But we need to we need to cut entitlement.
I'm here today not to talk about Janet Yellen. I'm here today. Guns and butter this morning. I could have written it. By the way, I didn't. We've got to stop, guys. We're drunk. We're digging this deep hole. What are we doing here?
No, he's talking about the rampant spending, rampant spending, right? Of the military-industrial complex, of all the tax cuts, just trillions and trillions of dollars not being allocated, right? Instead of making the IRS robust enough to actually tackle these criminals, because guys like him have lawyers they have a team of lawyers that are better and more powerful than even the IRS. And they make sure government keeps the IRS in that situation. So instead of addressing all that, listen to what he thinks is the solution here.
So what's more important?
Pre-COVID, we were spending 20%. The federal government was 20% of GDP in spending.
Right.
It's now 25% of GDP. As outlined in the Wall Street Journal editorial this morning, my father told me, if you're in the hole, stop digging, Stan. All right. So
yeah, we should tax you.
I was actually happy to see when the announcement, the support for Ukraine and Israel, $106 billion.
We're in a big hole because the assholes that you control, that run our government, are doing exactly what you're telling them to do, which is anyway.
And I was waiting to hear what the offset was going to be. Was it going to be entitlements? Where were the cuts going to be? And the next thing I knew, 2 days later,
Sorry, I interrupted him when he's making his point here. He's talking about Ukraine-Israel aid.
stop digging, Stan. All right. So I was actually happy to see when the announcement, the support for Ukraine and Israel, $106 billion. And I was waiting to hear what the offset was going to be. Was it going to be entitlements? Where were the cuts going to be? And the next
Where were the
thing I
cuts
knew,
by default? Okay, what entitlement that we're cutting, right? Don't you love how they changed the definition of that? Bitch, I'm not entitled to it. I paid for it. You're entitled to my motherfucking dick, bitch.
2 days later, there was not only no offset, there was $56 trillion in emergency spending. I have kids, I have grandkids. Child care is not emergency spending. It's a priority that maybe should be on the table or not, but we are.
Child care is not emergency spending. I have kids. It was okay for me. You're a motherfucking, I believe, a motherfucking billionaire, dude. This is what I'm talking about, man. They're literally wearing virtual reality goggles, okay? They are literally not living on our fucking planet, okay? And we need to stop acquiescing power to them because they are dangerous. They're dangerous.
We're spending like
I think that's my wife telling me to stop yelling.
Okay, so
do you agree with the House Republican plan, which puts forth spending for Israel but cuts it in the IRA through funding to the IRS? Is that an appropriate offset?
That was actually my mom saying, I love you. And my wife just came in and gave me a big bowl of warm ramen. So how about that, guys? I was completely wrong. Thank you, honey. Look at that. Uh-huh. You got it. Anyway, the point is made. Okay, we have to stop letting these people run our lives because they are this idea that they're experts, that they know what's going on because they got a big fat pile of money. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you have smart guys, they're businessmen, and they're very successful. I'm not saying it's mutually exclusive here. What I'm trying to say though is that the main dudes, the dudes at the very top, the ones that are making the decisions and like I said, buying our politicians that change the courses of our lives are almost suicidal in their greed. They are perfectly okay with a society completely in shambles as long as they're sitting at the top. And if you don't think that's true, look at third world countries. Look at Gabon. Right, Gabon is a great example. We were just looking at it just a couple weeks ago. But 50 years, this dynasty, watched their people live in squalor, and they lived in luxury. So it was all good. It was all good. Human beings that are mentally ill, like this person, that have the ability to cut off empathy, are perfectly okay. Decade after decade after decade of the society beneath them living in total fucking squalor as long as they get everything they want. Okay? We have to stop letting these people run our lives. We have to. Their power is from us. It's given to them from us.
but we are spending like drunken sailors. Okay, so
do you agree with the House Republican plan, which puts forth spending for Israel but cuts it in the IRA through funding to the IRS? Is that an appropriate offset in your mind?
Becky, I want to go after entitlements.
Dodge.
It's where the money is.
Listen to that question very carefully. Listen to that question one more time.
Do you agree with the House Republican plan, which puts forth spending for Israel but cuts it in the IRA through funding to the IRS? Is that an appropriate offset in your mind?
Becky, I want to go after entitlements. It's where the money is, and
you're not going to solve this.
At some point, it's going to happen. I'm going to give you some numbers to tell you why.
Do that. Yeah.
It's going to happen no matter what.
But it's
going to happen no matter what because you've insured it through your corruption, through your injection of corruption into our democracy. You've insured that. We need to stop them. They're relentless. They're absolutely relentless. They're mentally ill. utterly convinced that this is the way, this is the future, this is natural. This is just how human beings work. If it was a tribal society, we'd be I don't know, building there'd be hedge fund managers in our tribe. The left is the only entity even aware of this. We have a responsibility to do something about this. These individuals are dangerous. That's all I wanted to say when I saw this clip. It's just they are extremely fucking dangerous. All right, moving on to our next subject here. Looks like things are running smoothly, finally. But Congo conflict. Entitlement is where the money is. He's the entitled one. I mean, it's absurd. You know, and guess who was on board for entitlement reform? Barack motherfucking Obama, dude. The only thing that stopped entitlement Social Security reform was the Tea Party, who sorry, that's super loud. It was the Tea Party who were insistent that they wanted even bigger cuts to Social Security. So the Tea Party actually stopped Obama's compromise with the extreme right on cutting Social Security. He was totally on board for it. He was like, yep, we got to do it. We got to do it, guys. So conflict uproots record 6.9 million people in the Congo. I'm sorry, what? 6.9 million uproots? See here. Let's see if we can get a video going, dude. How come I don't have a video queued up? I don't want to read. I want to eat my noodles. Get a video queued up about this. I'm sure a more reputable journalistic source has done it better. This 2 months, 1 year, 4 months, 7 days. Here we go. Okay, France 24 on top of it. Thank you, France 24.
Now, there's been shock in Eastern DR.
You are a noodle. I'm a hairy noodle. Oh my God. Here we go.
Now, there's been shock in Eastern DR Congo over the killing in Beni of 26 people in an attack that's been blamed on the ADF militia group. Now, it's been terrorizing communities in the region since the 90s, and many of the latest alleged victims are reportedly children. Our correspondent brings us more from
uproot basically means move by force. You know, they were forcibly removed.
DR Congo.
Witnesses say that handmen raided homes in one part of Osha on Monday night. Several victims of the violence died of knife wounds. The authorities have blamed the killing on the ADF, a Ugandan armed group accused of killing thousands of civilians. The militia has pledged allegiance to Islamic State. It's been 2 years since the DRC and Uganda launched a joint military operation to try to stop the ADF's attacks. Several terrorists have since been neutralized, but the military offensive hasn't reduced the level of violence against civilians.
Holy shit. How old is this? Something from Al Jazeera. 2 years ago. Is this old news? Well, what the fuck? Okay, hold on. Let's go to the conflict tracker here. See if we can get more information on this. No one's covering this on YouTube. This is fucking weird. Great, that's working well. Yep, that's a list. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, here we go. Conflict in Democratic Republic of Congo. Latest news. The intensified conflict between rebels and government-aligned militias in the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, has led to one of the largest international displacement and humanitarian crises in the world. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, said since October 1st, nearly 200,000 people have fled their homes in eastern Congo. What the fuck? Where's Morning Joe on this, dude? What? Yes, fine. Take all my goddamn information, France 24. Send it to the French government. I don't fucking care. Where's Morning Joe on this? Media for the last 80 years. Yeah, the DRC has always been in chaos since the USA fucked them over. It can't be. It's not that simple. I'm sick and tired of that leftist. No offense, Leon. I have a lot of respect for you. You're great. You're doing a lot of activism. But I'm just trying to say I'm sick and tired of leftists just saying, well, it's the West. When these governments are some of the most corrupt fucking governments I've ever seen in my life. It's the West isn't helping. The West isn't insisting that these governments fix their corruption like they're insisting with Ukraine, fixing their corruption, showing that it's actually possible, right? So they're only interested in exploiting these incredibly corrupt governments. But something must be said. There has to be some culpability for the people living there that that are running the show there and how goddamn corrupt they are. And I'm talking about these governments, like I was talking about with Gabon. This guy, the family dynasty, ran the country for 50 years. Stole elections, did these mock fake ass elections, always won, no matter what. The conflict between M23 rebels and militias loyal to the DRC's government is intensified in eastern province of North Kivu since early October, particularly north of the provincial capital Goma. These are really cool names. I need to go visit the Congo. The UN's International Organization for Migration said many people who have fled their homes but stayed within the DRC's borders desperately needed help to meet their basic needs. Quote, the IOM is intensifying its efforts to address the complex and persistent crisis in the DRC as the number of internally displaced people, IDPs, okay, well, we got, all right, okay, climbs to a 6.9 million people across the country. Jesus. So displaced doesn't, I mean, that just means that they were moved because of fear from their homes. The highest number recorded yet, it said in a statement. With ongoing conflict and escalating violence, the DRC is facing one of the largest internal displacement and humanitarian crises in the world. The M23, which has captured swaths of territory in the east since 2021, is one of several militias holding sway over much of the region, despite the presence of international peacekeepers. Yeah, international peacekeepers. They basically just sit around and watch. The U.S. ousted this guy. That was what I was referencing. I see. Yeah. No, I'm not saying the West. Like I said, I'm not saying the West isn't culpable and that the West doesn't exploit. And like I said, the West isn't saying like, hey, we will offer you this great trade deal if you do something about corruption. If you show us some legitimate, reform on your rampant corruption, on your corrupt empire that you've been running here for decades. If you show some improvement, if people start, like if you start building some schools or installing some running water in some of these villages, okay, then we'll do a trade deal. But they don't care. They're not asking for any of that. So I totally agree that the West is culpable. But I mean, come on. I mean, I often see the left completely ignoring the corruption of the internal governments that run some of these, not only African, but European countries as well. Hey, it's all good. If you're corrupt, that's fine if you're playing ball. It is a, once again, self-defeating kind of mentality. And as we've seen with Ukraine, pressure, right? If you're like in pressure to reform corruption in exchange for aid can be a very effective tool at making people's lives better. So we should be doing it more. If we're going to be giving aid or doing trade with these countries. I'm shocked. I'm absolutely. Are you serious? So this is one of the largest displacements in human history, and there's not a single fucking video about it. No, come on, man. Okay, so let's just today. All right, here we go. Israel, Democratic Republic of Congo, and other topics. Daily briefing. I'm not watching a 27-minute commentary. Wanzulu fighters are pushing Rwanda out of. Oh, here we go. Okay. African Insider. Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy. Okay, this is what I'm talking about, right? This is why YouTube kicks fucking ass. All right, we just had to cut through the fucking... Because all the mainstream sources are pushed right to the top. Even if it's like a 6-year-old fucking video, they get precedence over relevant videos that are being created about the topic. Isn't that something?
So
Let's see what this guy's got to say.
Video where I talked about how in Congo there's this group called Wazalendo, also known as the Patriots, right? So they've been fighting these rebels from Rwanda or these soldiers from Rwanda that cross the border to Congo and pretend to be rebels there.
They often do, Leon.
Land, So I talked about how, Paul Kagame and Yoweri Museveni in Uganda has been trying to basically use proxies to annex the Congolese land. So they've been trying to take Goma and the whole of North Kivu. This is the North Kivu, these lines here. These are part of North Kivu. It's a huge province province.
This is super informative.
There's also South Kivu, but
the Red Wings,
northern South Kivu. So this is the land that borders, or the part of Congo that borders Uganda from all the way from South Sudan, and then goes all the way to Lake Tanganyika there. So this is the Kivu region. So Rwanda has been trying to use those proxies to annex land. So the first
this is super informative, dude. Thank you. Welcome back, Snow.
Into Congo to settle here. Then they start claiming that these people need to be protected, and they also trying to say that these people, associate themselves or identify themselves with being Rwandans than Congolese. So that is the reason and the pretext for Congo or for Rwanda to annex this land. So in the 1956, some Tutsis came and settled around here in this region.
This is so
Masisi,
fucking complicated,
and they called themselves Bamasisi or Abamasisi, which meaning the Tutsis in Masisi, right? And before that, the others who had settled in the South Kivu, in the region around Uvira and Murenge Hills. So they called themselves Banyamurenge, right? But this one didn't go in the 1956. They went there a long time ago, a little bit, probably early 1900. But they're also Tutsis. So what has been happening? The other thing is that...
What's been happening?
Is that this region is also the fact that, as I said in that video, in Rwanda we have close to 9 million Hutus. In Burundi, another 8.5 to 9 million Hutus. There are Hutus all over this place. So Hutus in this Kigoma region of Tanzania, there are so many everywhere. And then in Congo, there are close to 7 million Hutus in Congo. And actually in Congo, they even called Hutus, and the language they speak is called Kihutu inside Congo. They also speak Swahili and French. So Paul Kagame, trying to take this land, he is not doing it for all the Rwandans, because Rwanda has two major tribes, the Hutus and the Tutsis. He's trying to take this land only for the Tutsi, but then he forgets they are Hutus. So to take
ethnic religious cleansing. Okay, boy, that seems to be the theme of the year, huh? But 2023, the year of ethnic cleansing. Wow, not the year of the dog, guys. It's the year of ethnic cleansing. Terrible joke. That's horrible.
This land because they are already Hutus who are actually Congolese citizens. So he's trying to push away the Hutus so that he can replace them with the Tutsi.
Wow.
Now it's just not easy because in Rwanda he rules. He's from the Tutsi community. Almost everyone in his government is a Tutsi, and a few Hutus that they see as puppets.
What the fuck is the difference? What the fuck is the difference? What, they put their butter on the left side or the right side, the top or the bottom? What the fuck is the difference? Some slight difference of interpretation of the fucking Bible? Is that what we're talking about here? God, Jesus Christ, man. Dude, do you know how wealthy these African countries could be? Do you know, we're talking about Wakanda over here, dog.
But a lot of people, 80% of the population is a Hutu. So they oppress them. They use guns to keep them down. And now when they go to the other side where other Hutus are, they want to kill them to remove them here so that they can resettle the Tutsis in Masisi and in Uvira and other. But now the conflict has always been here in Goma, in North Kivu. But then the people here, they don't know the difference between a Tutsi in Masisi and in Uvira. So sometimes the Congolese have been
They don't know. They don't know the difference internally, dude. Okay, okay. All right. I get a fucking officially get a break here. Okay. I officially get a. We're talking. They don't. They can't even tell internally, dude. I don't know. You Houthi or Tutsi. What?
Retaliating and even hurting the Banyamulenge, who are Tutsis who went there more than 100 years ago. So as they mind their own business, they also attacked because, again, they also send some of their sons to go and fight with these ones in Masisi. In how do I say it? More in you understand, right? Like they come together, right?
No, I
so
don't.
They come together to fight because they belong to the same community. So that one has led to a lot of community around here sending their sons to get guns and forming defense forces, local militia.
They don't want to be pushed out of their land.
Calling themselves Wazalendo. And Wazalendo is a Swahili word for patriot. So these Wazalendo have been attacking Rwandan soldiers who cross over to Congo and call themselves M23 or M23 rebels. And they've been attacking Tutsis because they say these Tutsis are spies. They spy for these M23, which sometimes is true, by the way. They do spy and send information to these M23 and tell them
what a fucking
where the
mess
soldiers are, and the Congolese soldiers
this
are
is
attacked.
A mess.
So these villagers, the Wazalendo, have been now attacking every Tutsi. They call them Rwandaphone. Anyone who they suspect came from Rwanda, they attack, including the Banyamulenge, who are not part of what is happening in Goma. Now, I made that video and a lot of people came to comment, and I want to go through the comments so that we can see what people are talking about. So
okay, all right, no, all right, no, we're good. Okay, that's your recap on the Congo conflict. Okay, okay, like I said, the News Underground is the most substantive news channel on Twitch. I challenge you to find a single other political streamer talking about this subject. I challenge you. Find me. Okay? I'm not meaning to toot my own horn, but this is massive. This is historic. Almost 7 million people being displaced internally within their country because of tribal differences that even in some regions they can't even ascertain the difference of. Yeah, okay, so we will be covering this more. Like I said, I'm going to be falling back on our good old conflict tracker here. I think it is an incredibly useful tool, and we will be, like I said, falling back on this more so that we can keep up to date on all the shenanigans across the world here. That was really some incredible journalism, though, by our friend. Did I close the link? I did close the link. Hold on. Let me get you got to like and subscribe this guy. Okay, it's gone. Where is it? Oh, it's right here. African Insider, folks. Make sure you like and subscribe. Throw him the like. Throw him the subscribe. That is some excellent journalism right there. Look, I didn't understand all of it, but I understand, I understood some of it, and it was very useful. It was very helpful. I mean, good luck, finding that shit like on Morning Joe. Like they have the time between Joe's bloviating. I mean, they only give him 6 fucking hours a day. How does he have time for actual news? And we got it. It's got to be Joe, baby. Joe. We got to get back to Joe. 5 seconds of Willie, but let's get back to Joe. What, Mika's having a talk? No, let's cut back to Joe. Come on. Okay, thank you, Mika. Yeah, she's silly. All right, back to Joe, please. He only has 6 hours a day. He can't cover this. He doesn't have time. Trump. So give him a like and subscribe. Trump. Give him a like and subscribe. Okay, real quick. All right. I honestly, okay, we gotta get into the main meat of this. I've been bloviating too long. I'll go through the conflict tracker tomorrow. Don't worry, they'll still be there. Let's get this going here 1 second. Don't worry, the wars ain't going nowhere. Gaza Tragedy? Yeah, tragedy. Okay, I just want to make sure I was spelling it correctly. Ow! Yeah, Gaza tragedy, that sounds about right. I'd agree, you're the most detailed, although I think you could have a few episodes of material about activism, getting people to the underground to stop the crowds to speak. I totally agree, Leon. I accept that criticism. Yeah, no, Leon, I totally accept that criticism. I mean, you know, having a family, having a kid, it's been slowing me down, but I gotta be hitting them bricks. I totally agree with you. All right, let's see here. Let's fix this here. This is driving me a little bananas. Okay, it's not gonna work. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, and okay, alt just doesn't work anymore. Neat. Okay, cool. That's cool. That's fine. Oh, and look, that's too much. Yeah, we went too far, didn't we? Okay. Okay, professional operation here, folks. Okay, this is what professionalism looks like. So anyway, look, over to Gaza here. Lovely subject, this Gaza. Yesterday I was talking about how, I've been talking about Gaza for quite some time. And so I decided to look through my archives and find a juicy clip where I was being interviewed by a big time celebrity. And I was talking about this very subject. So I thought I would show this to you and to prove that I've been extremely consistent on this subject. So let's, whoops, I clicked the wrong, yeah. Oh, yep, that's not the right one. Nope, click that. That's not, nope. And we're not clicking the right ones. This is good. This is good. So anyway, I dug up this clip from my archives where I was being interviewed by Mark Maron. And I just wanted you guys to see that I've been consistent on this subject. Okay, so listen up.
If you meet a Jewish person in America, they're probably here because someone tried to kill their grandparents not that long ago. And we should be in Eastern Europe. And it would be nice to live somewhere that was not a part of the Christian apocalyptic prophecy.
Yeah. I remember when I said that to Mark, it was really funny.
It is also probably a good idea. He's like, maybe settle somewhere that the Christians don't think you all have to die in order for the
and then they want us all to go there. They need a certain number.
They
of
need
Jews.
us to go there so we can die. So the apocalypse.
But Christians they need us for their ridiculous vision. And
exactly.
they're not
like our ridiculous vision.
Yeah, Chem Goblin, if you're confused about this ridiculous vision, the person who cut this, I didn't cut it, found it on the internet because I'm so rich and famous that people just do that for me anyway. We're talking about the evangelical idea that once the creation or formation of Israel is complete, it will actually be the harbinger of the apocalypse. It'll be the beginning of the apocalypse. So you might want to look that up. That's a real legitimate belief that it's very possible that the new right-wing Speaker of the House in America believes in this theory that once the Jerusalem has become fully Israel's, that it will be the beginning of the apocalypse.
Are temporarily parallel.
Would you ever go live in Israel?
No, it would be to me it just seems very like an antiquated
Mark's a good friend.
If it is for religious reasons, I don't agree with it because I think religion is silly. If it is for truly the preservation of Jewish people, it makes no sense because, again, you don't keep something you're trying to preserve all in one place, especially when that place has proven to be
volatile.
Pretty volatile.
That was a really good point that I made.
As a Jewish person, like I was fed a huge amount of lies about Israel my entire life. They never tell you that. Oh, by the way, there were people there. They make it seem like it was just like they're sitting there. The fucking doors open.
Hours for the taking.
Yeah. Like it literally, they forget to include the fact to every young Jewish person, basically, like, oh, by the way, there were people there.
Well, they just want to make sure that you are frightened of your own survival to the point where when you get old enough, you will make sure that that money goes to Israel and that trees are planted and that you always speak highly of Israel and Israel must survive no matter what.
I think like for Jewish people, especially who are who view themselves as progressive and who view themselves as analytical and who view themselves as people who ask a lot of questions and really challenge the status quo, like, what are we doing?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a thing. I mean, I get frightened to talk about it. You start to...
I know.
Yeah, so that was my interview with Mark Maron. Mark's a great guy, really nice dude. So I just wanted to show you that I've been consistent on this subject for years. Okay, that the solution is a two-state solution. Obviously, we're not going to get that anymore. So we got to figure it out. But diplomacy is most important. And obviously, yeah, there are a lot of falsehoods that pro-Israeli interests have been perpetuating, about Israel and about the history of Israel. And the newest one, Seth Rogen, who's that? The newest one that we're hearing now is that, oh, by the way, now that we're done pretending that we care about the two-state solution, didn't you know Israel, the Palestinian, the territory that Palestine occupied has always been Jewish, has always been Israel. They were just, I don't know, babysitting it for a while we were in Germany or something. I don't know. But it's actually now all ours. It's always been ours. So this isn't even we're not even occupying or dispossessing people. We're just we're basically evicting them from our own houses and our own property. Right? Isn't that convenient now that we're done pretending like we actually care about a two-state solution, and it's all justified. It was actually already all justified. We need a 10-state solution. More states. Welcome back, Banger. Okay, yeah, so we're having some fun, guys. All the streamers are talking about this, and rightfully so. We're seeing mainstream media push back. I'm starting to think that maybe Israel might have to pull back on this. That the internal pressure from the United States is probably a lot harder than we were perceiving right now, because I mean, back in the day, it's a lot of you guys are too young. You didn't live it. I know. Listen, pull up a seat, listen to Grandpa here. Lenny, sorry, hold back your laughter. But no, pull up a seat, listen to Grandpa abandon nihilism here. Back during the Iraq War, it was these kind of things, like like there was no discussion really about the human cost of these actions. It was just revenge, revenge, revenge. You saw it on TV, you saw it reflected in the news, attack on America. I mean, the narrative was very clear, and there was almost zero discussion about the human cost of these wars. Now, that wasn't the case for the European news. But what I'm seeing that is great. Yeah, you are. And you've earned that title. But what I've been seeing that's a little different, that has been giving me a little bit of hope, is like what we saw yesterday with the newly minted liberal Piers Morgan. Not exactly nodding his head and agreeing, but allowing Cenk Uygur and also representatives of Palestine to speak uninterrupted, without badgering them and ad hominem attacks, and using all the Sean Hannity tactics. I'm actually seeing, and of course, famously, what's been going across the news now is, I think I have the clip queued up, Wolf Blitzer pushing back on on an IDF spokesman about this strike on a refugee camp. He's saying, oh yeah, we did it to kill this high level target. And apparently Wolf Blitzer is like a member of some high level Jewish organization, super pro-Israeli guy, and even he can't find the the wormy way to justify what is clearly a strike on civilians, against a civilian target. And unlike the hospital, which like I said, I'm willing to give Israel the benefit of the doubt on that one, even though they've bombed hospitals in the past. Okay. But unlike the hospital, where there was like a question or there was ambiguity, this one, they're like, nope, we did it. It was intentional. It was good. It was justified. And Wolf Blitzer asked the guy, hey, did you even kill him? And he was like, oh, I don't know. We'll get back to you. We'll see. But it's good. It's all justified. It's a tragedy of war. Oh, we're so sorry. They should have left. And then, of course, I also have another story here that shows Israel has been bombing the shelter locations, the safe locations in southern Gaza. so that, Israel telling them, okay, here's a safe spot. Here, this place is a safe spot. That place is a safe spot, and they're bombed. Right. So you're told to evacuate northern Gaza. So you're on your way, or maybe you made it there, and you get attacked anyway. So then, yeah, okay, just all right. Let's get in the car. Let's go get killed in our own home. Then, it's incredibly tragic, the decisions that these people are being forced to make, the Palestinians. So let's dig into some of the video here. Well, actually, real quick, this is from Davey in the Discord, !Discord if you want to join it, by the way. But as we can see here, this is the IDF's progress right now. They're right about here. This was a couple hours ago, so it's very possible that they might have already reached the sea. For me, ultimately, the question I'm going to be asking every time I see some of this is, are they leaving? Are they leaving? And honestly, I mean, we're talking about the urban environment, the fact that Gazans are more desperate than ever, and they don't really see a benefit to leaving. That there's going to be more of a mentality of, to the last man kind of mentality, because this is an invasion of their property, and they understand that they're never going to be allowed to return if Israel is able to successfully take this entire region. They understand that. As long as they say there was one Hamas member, they will justify it. They could have used special forces to go after Hamas. They decided to invade. Well, actually, we might be so yes, definitely they're coming in here, but we might not see, according to one of the analysts that we're going to be listening to, we might not see a full-blown occupation of the entire region because it's just so difficult. It's going to be IDF soldiers are going to be dropping left and right. The tunnel network is impossible to destroy, and I'm going to be showing you clips that's going to be explaining all this. And what we've seen recently, at least the news that I saw today, IDF is now sending soldiers into these tunnels, to try and extract these hostages, which is a fool's errand. It's a total fool's errand. This isn't the Vietnamese tunnel rat situation. There are apparently over 300 miles of tunnels that snake around and spider across all of Gaza. So if you have a hostage, you always have a direction to take him in. There's no way you'll ever be cornered. So it's this idea that, Rambo is going to come in there and rescue these hostages, I think is a bit of a canard, my favorite word. I think it's a bit of a falsehood that we're going to be seeing these heroic extractions of these people. And look, if push comes to shove and they are actually cornered, well, the hostages are going to get killed before Israel gets there. It's not like the movies where the guy, the guard who's guarding the hostages, he goes, "What was that noise?" And then he leaves the room, and then he gets killed, and then the hostages are freed. It doesn't happen like that, folks. Okay, it does not happen like that. So anyway, there you go. Thank you, Davey, for that update. All right, so let's get an update for some real journalists here. Despite delays of unity, Israelis are divided over the war with Hamas. I found this interesting. We get a little couple person on the ground interviews from inside Israel. We haven't really been hearing a lot from the people of Israel about what they actually think about this. So I thought this was an interesting interview that we should show. And of course, yes, we're going to be covering all the strikes against the refugees. All the stuff I just explained. We're going to be going through all that, but I wanted to do a person on the street interview here just to kind of get a good idea of where we're at here with the people on the ground inside Israel. Israel's imperialist, national conservative, colonial state, Palestine, Israel, my view at least. Look, there were protests against Hamas in 2018 by the Gaza Strip Palestinians. Because of their corruption, they've stopped holding elections. They're basically dictators inside the Gaza Strip. And yes, there are a lot of people that are like, you don't speak for us. You're making our lives miserable. And yes, I do believe that the Gaza Strip Palestinians are being victimized by Hamas. At the same time, I really don't see an effort to do anything about that. It seems to me that Bibi Netanyahu was interested in fostering a relationship with Hamas before this happened, in an effort to, make the power imbalance between the PLO and Hamas larger in favor of Hamas. Because what Hamas's entire existence and their actions feeds directly into Israeli propaganda perfectly. I swear to God, you would think it was manufactured by Bibi Netanyahu. The perfect villains. The perfect villain. The only thing that they don't do is twirl their mustache and Heil Hitler. But they have it in their charter. We exist to destroy you. They do incredibly barbaric things. They walk right into the propaganda machine of Israel, to the benefit of the right-wing government of Israel. So it's, the Palestinian people in Gaza are victims of Hamas. The question is, though, because this whole idea you're supposed to eliminate Hamas. How come we're not talking about an invasion into southern Gaza then? Is that just implied that we're also going to be invading southern Gaza to eliminate Hamas? The only way you can eliminate terrorism is through politics. It is next to impossible outside of complete eradication to destroy terrorism at the barrel of a gun. The best way to destroy terrorism is to make the people's lives, improve the condition of the people's lives. That's how you destroy terrorism, is that you eliminate the need. You eliminate the need to commit terrorism. There's no blowing this up. There's no shooting this until it goes away.
Tel Aviv, 1 week after the worst massacre in Israeli history. We're at a rally held to support the families of hostages kidnapped by Hamas. A show of unity as attendees sing the national anthem.
Look at Homie's t-shirt. Talk about inappropriate. That is an MTV Jackass t-shirt, yo. That, Homie, surely you had a different shirt on your bedroom floor that you could have picked up off the floor and put on, dude. What the fuck are you doing?
Attendees sing the national anthem. But it's an illusion quickly shattered by deep-seated differences.
I will not shut up. You are talking bullshit. No, you're talking bullshit. You are talking bullshit. IDF is the most humanitarian army in the world.
I'm pressing X so hard, I think I broke my controller. That's a big doubt.
Houses and killing people inside their homes. What are you talking about?
Yale's angry and insists it's everyone's duty to rally behind Benjamin Netanyahu's government.
Please, we beg you, cry.
Do you think this woman agrees with Bibi Netanyahu changing changing the entire framework of her democracy? Okay, there, internet, hello? There we go, internet. Yeah, guys, so all you need to do is just increase the brutality, and then the bad guys will be like, oh, gee, shucks. I guess we better give them back those hostages. Is that the fantasy world you live in? If you really, I'm so sick and tired of these right-wing pro-Israeli people using these hostages as political pawns, because there's no interest in saving these people. If there was honest interest in saving these people, they'd be recommending surgical strikes, special teams going in, negotiations, of course, big time negotiations, ceasefires so that we can start those negotiations. But that's not what she wants. She wants the full-blown destruction of the Gaza Strip, right? And that's somehow going to produce hostages. I don't know. The reason it doesn't make sense, because it's not about the hostages. It has nothing to do with these people. It's a political tool.
Once they're here, we can settle all the differences.
This is the same street where, for 10 months, protesters have rallied against the government's plan to reform the judiciary. Now, some here are even daring to point the finger of blame at Israel for the October 7th massacres.
We've never known a situation like this in Israel. It's our second Holocaust. Look what's got us here.
We gotta stop with this. We gotta stop with this, okay? Look, it was absolutely tragic, incredibly barbaric. It was not a Holocaust. It wasn't.
Of course, Hamas are awful. They're animals. But it's the occupation. 57 years of occupation that has led us to where we are today.
Pretty amazing to hear that from an Israeli living in Israel. That is pretty amazing stuff, you know, and yeah, the Israeli society is not in lock, just like the Gaza Strip society is not in lockstep with Hamas. There, you know, I do believe though that there is a democratic majority that agree with Bibi Netanyahu. I think this woman is I think she's in the minority, democratically inside Israel, in terms of we should negotiate, we should end the occupation. I do think the democratic majority in Israel wants either, you know, would be begrudgingly okay with the death and eradication of 3.2 million Palestinians, but would prefer we just dump them into Georgia and Egypt Jordan and Egypt, and then call it a day and just take over the rest of the territory and then let those Arab countries deal with all their new refugees. I think that's the democratic majority of people in Israel. And last time I made that statement, by the way, we pulled up the fucking poll numbers and I proved it. So, you know, take your fucking doubt and shove it up your ass. I'm sorry, I'm getting really mean to like the straw man that I've created. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be mean to you, straw man. Head on over to the wizard. I'm just saying I can back up what I'm saying in terms of the demographics and what they believe in.
They're animals. But it's the occupation. 57 years of occupation.
We did it
that
last
has led
time
us
as well.
to where we are today.
Yeah, strategy. Yeah.
That kind of opinion from the political far left is rarely heard in peacetime, and for many, simply unimaginable in the midst of war. We leave Tel Aviv and head north to Israel's third largest city. 12% of Haifa's population is Arab, which makes it officially a mixed city. The state often touts it as a model of coexistence, but the reality is far more complex.
We're here today because everywhere you look there are messages of violence and hate. Some people are trying to stir up conflict between the Jews and the Arabs who live here.
Standing Together was created in 2015 during an upsurge in violence that became known as the Stabbing Intifada. At first, its aim was to counter hate and bloodshed. Now the NGO's roughly 5,000 members, Jews and Arabs, work to promote social justice and harmony between Israel's communities.
There are voices in the room that are not calling for genocide. Okay, it feels overwhelming. It feels overwhelming because the Israeli propaganda machine is so robust. But this is so nice to see. This is so refreshing to see. All my cynicism aside about the demographic reality. There are people who understand the situation and understand that, there is no end to the bloodshed without some kind of, acceptance of guilt, of course, from both sides. But there's no negotiating with Hamas. That is a massive hurdle. As long as Hamas has control over the Gaza Strip, there is no democratic solution to that problem. Now, with that said, just because it's difficult doesn't mean that things could you can make that change, but it does make it very difficult to be dealing with an entity like Hamas. We're not even talking about the PLO here. We're talking about Hamas. These guys, I'd rather be dealing with the Sandinistas. All right, I'd rather be dealing with Mexican cartels than Hamas. They're not budging. Okay, they're not changing their opinion on shit, dude. On shit, they're not changing anything. So there's no negotiations to be had with an entity like that. I mean, technically not true. You know, they were able to release those hostages way back when, right? They got 1,000 Hamas soldiers for the one IDF soldier that they took hostage. I think that was in 2005, something like that. So I mean, you know, technically you can negotiate, but you know what I mean. Like it's only a matter of time before if you give Hamas room to breathe, it's only a matter of time before we see another direct attack against Israel. That I believe that's true. These people are fucking animals. Look, I don't mean to. They're humans. I'm not going to fall into that trap. They act like animals. They are extremely barbaric. They're extremely stupid. Their strategies for what they're doing with the hostages and how they're handling this is Bush League amateur hour. And yes, they're doing a massive disservice to the fucking Palestinian people. Thank you for that follow, Random Duck.
We also fight against the occupation and war. Today we're calling for more solidarity and for Jews and Arabs to work together. We're all hit by this situation. Jews and Arabs who live here are deeply affected by the war. We must work together if we're ever to achieve peaceful coexistence.
2 weeks after the start of the war, activists are sticking up posters calling for peace in both Hebrew and Arabic, which was axed as an official language back in 2018. There's no mention of the bombing of Gaza.
See, that's more of those apartheid laws. Now, the definition of apartheid is two sets of laws for, you know, different types of people. In this case, different religious preferences. But there is a completely different set of laws for Palestinians than there are for Israelis in the same country. That is the definition of apartheid.
Gaza, nor the building of settlements in the West Bank. These youths say they're too risky to bring up.
We're living in a political climate which hinders freedom of expression. Nowadays, we ostracize not only Palestinians, but Jews too, whenever they call for solidarity between Jews and Arabs.
Sally Abed is a Palestinian with Israeli citizenship. She says the massacres of October 7th have made her community an object of suspicion.
The current situation has ripped Arab and Israeli society apart.
Can we talk about how this woman is a straight up hero real quick? Big props to this woman. Activist of the month. This woman right here. Absolute super brave. Super brave.
And there's a total split. So we're automatically the enemy. You're the enemy until you prove your loyalty to the state of Israel. Don't forget that the violence leveled at us comes from a state apparatus that's never been as repressive and racist as it is now. The situation is extremely serious.
That's a fact.
We're very worried.
Her concerns are driven partly by results at the polls. As hardliners gain ground, moderate voices like Israel's Labour Party have been decimated. We return to Tel Aviv, where we're meeting the head of the party.
I wish I could reassure anyone, you know. Can Israelis be reassured that they are safe in their own country, both Jews and Arabs?
In Israel's current climate, few politicians dare speak out about harmony between Jews and Arab Israelis. Those who do, like Merav Mikhaeli, weigh their every word.
I wouldn't call it coexistent. It's a shared existence. We exist here together. And even when times are very, very tough, we realize that. And we are, I do believe, part of the same people. Now we have to fix everything. So the politics really does manifest and serves what the majority of Israelis want.
But for now, it's the fight against Hamas that's at the forefront of people's minds here. And those whose struggle is for peaceful coexistence have had their voices drowned out by the drumbeat of war.
I'm not a fan of religion myself. I'm not a fan of religion, but I am a fan of liberty. So I need to, so as a non-religious person on the left, I need to understand there is a requirement for tolerance for religious people. Now that tolerance ends at the moment that religious person says, no, we need to change society because of my arbitrary belief, right? And to me, it's the same as having like a fucking, brony saying, well, my religion is cartoon ponies. And I think we should teach the gospel of cartoon ponies in school. Be like, whoa, dog, hell no. Check this man's browser history, by the way.
Israel's military has
this other straw man that I've created, but it's equally ridiculous. I believe in liberty. So I believe that people should be able to believe whatever nonsense that they want to believe. People have the right to be stupid. People have the right to be wrong. And I believe in those things. So it's that push and pull. It's that push and pull between freedom and control, right? So it's more complicated than just we need to eradicate religion. Okay, not exactly, no, because we need to eradicate religious control over our society while also allowing people to think and feel and believe what they wish to believe. So it's complicated. It's not easy. Learn about brony culture in school. We the history of the problems they've believed throughout history. But how about a compromise? We will just churn history into like a My Little Pony cartoon. Problem solved, right? We'll just have like a My Little Pony George Washington and My Little Pony Mao Zedong and we'll just tell all of history through the lens of bronyism, right? Compromise. There we go. Religion, yeah. Well, thank you, Kissing Gonzo, for agreeing with that. You're right. It's more complicated than eradication is possible. Criticism is not only available, it's necessary in terms of those that believe in theocracies. My little genocide. God. Stop being so clever. I can't be seen laughing at funny jokes like that. We're not allowed to laugh at funny jokes on Twitch, guys. It's literally illegal. Ask Hassan. He makes all the rules. Many reported dead in Israel strike on Gaza refugee camp. So here we go. We're getting into the fun stuff. This report is extremely troubling, extremely depressing. If you don't want to be depressed, maybe, I don't know, go turn on some My Little Pony. Shit, I almost feel like watching some My Little Pony. I don't, this is not fun. I'm not having fun doing this shit. I don't like this.
Israel's military has confirmed that it carried out an airstrike on Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza, saying its target was a senior commander with Hamas. The group are designated as a terrorist organisation by the UK government. The death toll is not clear, but tonight a doctor treating the victims says the dead and injured are in the hundreds. The attack happened in a densely built-up area that was home to more than 100,000 people. Israel has called on civilians in the north of the territory to move south, and tonight it reiterated its claim that Hamas intentionally uses civilians as shields. Our international editor Jeremy Bowen has the latest, and his report is distressing from the start.
Israel says the destruction came from airstrikes that killed a senior Hamas commander and
I'm going to try to improve the resolution here 1 second. No, this is as good as it gets. Sorry, folks.
Some of his men. It said Hamas was using these civilians as human shields in a cruel and brutal manner, and that the airstrikes...
Don't forget, if you are a U.S. citizen, this is 100% paid for out of your taxpayer dollars. You paid for this. Please remember that if you are a U.S. citizen.
Caused the collapse of underground Hamas bunkers. Israel ordered civilians to leave this area. Many did. Many others did not.
Can't show you that. That's a dead body being pulled out of the rubble.
Some people even returned to their homes because conditions further south were so desperate.
That is a dead child being pulled out of the rubble.
An unknown number of people are buried under the rubble.
That is another dead child being pulled out of the rubble.
He says Oh God, my 3 children are gone, 3 kids. I hope I can find one of them alive. I didn't bid them farewell. Jabalia camp covers just over half a square mile.
Gee, I don't know. That looked like a pretty human response to me. I don't know. Maybe they're not animals, guys. I don't know, guys. Maybe acquiescing to the wishes and desires of an extremist right-wing government isn't the best idea. I don't know. Amy Schumer's really passionate about this on Twitter, so, you know, I mean, she's a rich celebrity, so I'm probably wrong. Okay. There we go.
116,000 refugees were registered here with the UN before the war. He says it's a massacre, 30 to 40 homes blown to pieces, bodies everywhere, everyone's looking for their beloved ones. The local hospital was overwhelmed with casualties. The surgical director sent the BBC
That's
this
a lot of
video.
dead kids.
He said they'd done 15 to 20 amputations. Patients, he said, arrived packed into ambulances with the wounded alongside
that guy's
the dead.
barely alive. That guy's literally barely alive.
400 injured patients between
Can't show you that. That kid is completely mangled.
You see that the majority of them
That's a dead kid. Maybe he's not dead.
Dr.
I can't
Elron
tell.
told me around 120 dead from this afternoon's attack are at the hospital. They ran out of space inside the building.
Can't show you all the dead bodies. This is just a big
Hamas released these
line
pictures
of dead
of their men
bodies.
emerging from part of their extensive tunnel network. It's hard to work out with any precision what's happening in the ground wall. Both sides claim to have killed their enemies. Hamas will try to use hit-and-run guerrilla tactics against a much more powerful army. Israel released these pictures. It seems clear they're pressing forward. Some reports say they're closer to Gaza City without entering it yet. Moving through relatively open villages is much less of a military challenge than advancing into a city. On their side of the Gaza border, Israel has plenty of force in reserve, and it says a long fight ahead.
We don't have much detail about what the Israelis are doing inside Gaza. They are working very hard to control the information battlefield, which is a big part of modern war. They are releasing some video and some generalized communiques about success, but they are minimizing access.
Jabalia will fuel the controversy about killing Palestinian civilians. Unintentional casualties, Israel says, in a just war. America warned Israel not to be blinded by rage. And Palestinians believe Israel is inflicting another catastrophe on them.
Yeah.
Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Southern Israel.
This, I mean, look, I'm not quite sure if, like I said, I'm not sure if Bibi is going to be able to achieve this goal of taking the entire northern Gaza City and taking the whole thing. I don't think that there's enough steam in the steamboat there to get them across. I do think that's the goal, though. I do think that's what they want to achieve.
We can join Jeremy now in southern Israel. And Jeremy, to your point there must be big questions tonight about Israel's strategy.
Yes, big questions too about the numbers of Palestinian civilians being killed at the moment. Last night, Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, said that the world needed to decide which side it was on. It was a moral question, he said, about right and about wrong. And he said there was a big difference between Hamas killing civilians.
They desperately need the equation to look like that. They desperately need it to be a very simple good versus evil. Because that's the only way that any of this makes any sense. With their narrative. I do a ground invasion. The deaths so far pale in comparison to those on both sides. I mean, it's not going to be pretty, and there is a lot. There's a lot of Palestinians there that are like, well, they're going to kill me in southern Gaza. Why not die here? I do believe that there is a much bigger fight on, die on your feet to the last man standing kind of mentality in Gaza City. I don't know though. We'll have to see. But I mean, I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. I don't think that city has been emptied of 1.1 million people. I don't know how many have left and how many remain. But I don't think this is going to be the cakewalk that IDF is saying it's going to be. Welcome back, Davey.
And what he said were accidental deaths in a just war, referring to this kind of operation.
Interesting, Davey.
The Americans are concerned enough, I think, about Israel's conduct to remind them on several and repeated occasions that they need, while they defend themselves, to observe the laws of war. And of course, finally, Palestinians reject everything Israel says about the way that Israel claims to try to preserve Palestinian lives. And senior Palestinian officials have used the word genocide to me to describe their view of what Israel is doing.
Jeremy, many thanks as always. Jeremy Bowen there speaking from...
That was a long pause. That tells you there's quite a delay over there in Palestinian internet. All right, so I mean, we're just going to go through some of these relevant clips here from actual journalists. No point in me trying to repeat their work or trying to improve their work. Israel's strategic challenge: will ground invasion succeed against Hamas? So this is a really, really good interview that's going over some of these questions that we've been talking about. How feasible is this? Is it possible to destroy Hamas? Is it possible to destroy these tunnels? Is it, how effective have previous conflicts against Hamas gone, when Israel has gone toe to toe with this group? And what's different about this conflict versus the conflict of the past? So this is a really, really good video. This is a damn good interview. So trust me, not be disappointed here. This is definitely good shit.
Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters on France 24. I'm Nadia Massi. In the show this week, as Israel's ground war gets underway in Gaza, we look back at previous military operations in the enclave. Did they achieve their aims, and at what human cost? And with the death toll in Gaza soaring, we'll ask what victory might look like in this conflict. Can Hamas truly be defeated?
Spoiler alert.
Welcome to the program.
Not really.
This week, the Israeli bombardment of Gaza is intensifying, and the ground war has begun as well. The stated aim by Israel is to destroy Hamas in response to the October 7th attacks on Israeli communities. However, this is, of course, not the first time Israel has fought a bloody war in Gaza in an attempt to quash the militant group. So, what happened in those previous battles, and might any lessons be learned? This first report by France 24's Leo McGuinn.
It's been 18 years since the Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. Since then, its army has only undertaken 3 large-scale military operations into the region. Such ops are rare because the cost of sending ground troops into Gaza is high. In 2006, Israel launched Operation Summer Rains in response to the kidnapping of soldier Gilad Shalit, who had been taken hostage.
I earlier said this was 2005, so just a quick correction, 2006.
By Palestinian commando. For the first time, the Israeli army launched a military strategy that would be repeated many times over the years. First, Gaza was bombed en masse before almost 3,000 soldiers were deployed into the region. The operation lasted 5 months. Dozens of Hamas officials were arrested, with the Israeli army suffering very few casualties. But strategically it was a failure. Shalit was not released and would not be until 5 years later, in exchange for 1,000 Hamas fighters. The second operation began in December 2008. Israel launched what would become known as the First Gaza War. The aim this time was to put an end to rocket fire and, above all, to destroy the hundreds of tunnels between the enclave and the Egyptian Sinai Peninsula through which arms were transported. For Israel, the modus operandi remained the same. Gaza was bombed en masse before troops entered the enclave on the 3rd of January 2009. 15 days of particularly deadly fighting followed, although Israel claimed to have lost only 10 soldiers. 700 Hamas fighters were killed, as well as almost 900 Palestinian civilians. Many of the tunnels were destroyed, but the Israeli image was damaged publicly because of the collateral victims. Finally, in 2014, after the murder of 3 Israeli teenagers, the IDF launched Protective Edge. But this time, Hamas was ready for a confrontation. Israel once again used its air force before sending in its troops. IDF soldiers were forced to operate in densely populated areas and minefields where they were regularly attacked by Hamas units. After 2 months of operations, there was a heavy death toll. 73 dead on the Israeli side, including 67 soldiers. And according to the UN, over 2,000 Palestinians were killed. 3 operations, but none really decisive against Hamas. This time, Israel says it's determined to destroy the organization, even though it's holding many hostages.
And once again, I would like to pose the question, if the goal is to destroy Hamas, what are the plans for southern Gaza? Is it just assume that we're also invading southern Gaza? Last time I checked, Hamas is in there as well.
Well, listening to that report was Bilal Saab. He's the director of the Defense and Security Program at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. He joins us on the program from there. Thanks for joining us on France 24, sir.
Happy to do this with you. Thank you.
As we saw in that report...
Okay, so real quick, before it disappears, I want to point out this guy's title. This guy is the director of the Defense and Security Program, Middle East Institute. Okay, he might know a thing or two about this subject. Just wanted to point that out, guys.
Israel tried to destroy Hamas in the 2008 war, in the 2014 war. Israel didn't succeed then. Arguably, actually, Hamas got stronger after those conflicts. So militarily, can Israel succeed this time, do you think?
I'm glad you mentioned the word and the caveat militarily, because that's always possible. The question has always been, what is the military risk that Israel is willing to accept to its soldiers, and what is the political price it's also willing to tolerate? Militarily speaking, Israel has the capacity.
By the way, just a reminder, big props to Strategy Member for buying a garbage fuel mouse pads. Very sorry we didn't get the celebratory animation. But big props again to Strategy for buying a piece of merch. And thank you again to Lenny for all of your purchases.
To massively degrade the organization, perhaps even disarm it. But when you talk about strategic victory, when you're talking about uprooting, when you're talking about wiping out, destroying, annihilating things that the Israeli government has declared since the beginning of this war, that becomes almost like a mission impossible.
Well, indeed, as you're suggesting there, we know that there is a real asymmetry between the Israeli army and Hamas militarily. The IDF, obviously one of the strongest militaries in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean this will be a straightforward campaign for Israel. I want to talk to you about that in a bit more detail in just a moment. But first, France 24's James Vecina crunches some of the numbers for us.
This report is essential.
It counts 170,000 personnel, of which 126,000 are soldiers. And Israel also has at its disposal 400,000 reservists. Almost all of them have been mobilized since Hamas's attack on the 7th of October. 360,000, that's 4% of the population. The state allocates over $25 billion a year on defense. That's the 15th biggest budget in the world. Among other things, it allows them to maintain 1,300 tanks and armoured vehicles, 345 fighter planes, as well as drones, submarines, and
literally
its
all
famed
your
Iron
money.
Dome defensive system,
U.S. citizen.
which
This
is
is all
considered one of the
yours.
most effective on the planet. Yet Hamas's attack has brought to light a number of flaws.
Technically not all, because Israel receives aid from other countries, but this is almost all United States aid money. And the reason I keep pointing that out is because the number one entity that could push Israel into some kind of peace negotiation is the United States, because of the dependence Israel has on the United States.
With so many rockets being fired at the same time, the Iron Dome failed to intercept them all.
Israel is known for having a pound-for-pound, very effective military. They're known for having one of the best intelligence services in the world. I think that's still true, but you got to call a spade, and this was a massive, costly failure, and Israel knows.
It's still a conspiracy theory, but this, I don't know. I'm just not buying this idea that just, the IDF, the intelligence services that are world class, had no idea that on the 50th year anniversary, that this was, they just had no clue that anything was going to happen. It's a little too convenient. It really is a little too convenient. I don't trust right-wing governments to not orchestrate false flags or look the other way so that something can happen that would benefit them politically. Look at the reality. How much has this benefited Bibi Netanyahu politically? And I honestly, I have my doubts that, I don't think it was like planned or anything. I don't know what the extent is. It's all a conspiracy theory. I don't have any real proof. I have some hearsay. I don't have a lot of proof of it, but something doesn't feel right about this intelligence failure, by these guys who have, it's literally an open air prison. They have outposts. They have 24/7 observation. They can intercept the cell phone and internet communications of the entire region. I just have a hard time believing Bibi knew nothing. The IDF knew nothing. I just don't. It's just something ain't right. Something ain't right about it. Or Israel's in a fight or die mindset. Well, ignore the U.S. completely. The Bibi Netanyahu and the right wing government does not honestly believe they are in a fight or die scenario. That is propaganda. That is a falsehood that they perpetuate because it amplifies the victimhood narrative. They are not in a fight or die. They know the existence of Israel is not being challenged, regardless of how bellicose and violent Hamas gets all their statements about the total destruction of this and that. They know for a fact Hamas doesn't have the power to destroy or even invade Israel. Could you imagine an invasion coming out of the Gaza Strip into Israel? What a fucking joke that would be. What? You got 6 paragliders and 2 guys on a fucking rowboat with some bicycles?
Was that?
And while Hamas's overall strength doesn't come close to Israel's, the group has grown with time. The terrorist organization manufactures many of its rockets and kamikaze drones within the Gaza Strip, with financial backing from Iran. Israel believes Hamas has a total stock of 30,000 rockets. Other weapons and materials are believed to be smuggled in from Iran, Egypt, Libya, Lebanon or North Korea via the sea and underground. Since rising to power in 2007, Hamas has built a gigantic underground tunnel system.
They have a town underground that they are in control of, not the Israeli army. Hamas have the upper hand underground. Israel has the upper hand from the air, but boots on the ground means fighting underground, and it's not going to be easy.
An underground network that causes a tactical headache for Israeli forces, complicating any targeted attack on the terrorist organization.
Yeah, who wants to jump in those tunnels?
Still with me is Bilal Saab. And Bilal, it seems that the Israeli ground campaign for the moment is concentrating on Gaza.
I tell you, about 5 minutes in those fucking tunnels, I'd be like, maybe we should have a discussion about ending the occupation, guys. I don't know about this one. I just saw the buddy 5 feet in front of me get his feet blown off by a booby trap. Maybe we should have a discussion about ending this occupation.
Gaza City in the north of the enclave. We know it's a densely populated area. We know it's full of civilians. So this is going to be urban warfare, isn't it? It will be bloody. In fact, it already is. What's your sense as to how this battle will shape up now?
Not just urban warfare, it's also going to be a subterranean warfare because they have to deal with the tunnels. This is where Hamas is keeping more than 200 hostages. There's going to be that component to that fight, which adds an incredible layer of complexity of objectives. But I've sensed over the past couple of days some kind of a shift in tactics on the part of the IDF. I think we're now looking at a much more limited set of objectives as opposed to what was declared initially. Looking at something a little bit more surgical as opposed to a full-fledged ground invasion. And I think the logic there is compelling. Frankly, on the one hand, it reduces the risk to the IDF soldiers inside those tunnels. And then, of course, you could reduce collateral damage if you do more surgical strikes. And we can get into those in detail if you want.
And you mentioned the tunnels under Gaza. Is it possible, do you think, for Israel right now to sort of put those tunnels out of use? I'm thinking of the 2006 war that Israel fought with Hezbollah in...
Was the United States capable of doing that in Vietnam? It's okay. It's next to impossible to explode them all without some kind of map or something. But then on top of that, with all you guys are like flooded with water, nerve gas, all these stupid fucking cartoon ideas. No offense to everybody, sorry, not making fun of you. But all these fantasy ideas about filling the tunnels with gas or water, there's hostages. So you got this other problem. By the way, the earth absorbs a lot of that water, so it's a whole thing.
Lebanon, where tunnels were used to great...
Totally different situation. I agree. It's not apples to apples, but we're talking about underground tunnels here, and I can't think of a better comparison than the tunnels that the Viet Cong created. That is a fair comparison. And it's extremely difficult to find these tunnels and destroy them all, and it's incredibly frightening to go into these tunnels to go after these people if you are on the other side. Those are fair comparisons.
Great advantage by that militant group. Clearly, they're an asset to Hamas, so presumably that's a top priority.
Zio Duke, please look into what happened in Russia when they attempted to use sleeping gas to rescue hostages.
The 2006 war that Israel fought with Hezbollah in Lebanon, where tunnels were used to great advantage by that militant group. Clearly, they're an asset to Hamas, so presumably that's a top priority for Israel now.
Out of use? No, that's unrealistic. We're talking about 300 miles of tunnels. This is not your average tunnel. This is far more extensive than one Hezbollah, southern Lebanon. The most you could do is, once again, try to massively degrade and damage that infrastructure to the point where it becomes a little bit more manageable. It becomes a little bit draining for Hamas to operate from them, to fire rockets and missiles from them. But no, there's certainly no way, at least cost efficiently, to completely destroy that entire tunnel infrastructure. They've tried.
All right, look, and to all you armchair generals in the comments section, please get back to me when you're the director of defense and security program of the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. Go ahead and give me your opinion about the effectiveness, about how Israel is going to be able to end these tunnels once you've achieved that title, please. Because, look, I don't mean to appeal to authority here, but this guy's an expert on this fucking subject.
But no, there's certainly no way, at least cost efficiently, to completely destroy that entire tunnel infrastructure. They've tried over the years to degrade it, them and the Egyptians, but they've realized that it's just so vast and it's multi-floored and it's tight and it's deep that there's just no way that you can completely take it out of use.
You've been talking a bit about Israel's objectives and strategy. I'm really interested that you think that potentially Israel's...
Davey, honestly, I mean, I don't mean to call you out, man, but please take mental note of the stances that you're taking, of your certainties, of the things that you're certain of. Please take note of those things so that you can look back on this time in a couple months when Israel is having a hard time eliminating these tunnels, and achieving its goals. Okay, I just please take a mental note of where you stand right now and the things that are coming out of your mouth in the next couple months. Okay.
Israel's objectives and strategy. I'm really interested that you think that potentially Israel's goal here is changing a little. But let's talk about the strategy of Hamas. Israel says Hamas uses human shields. That's one of the reasons they say why so many Palestinians have been killed so far. What do you make of that? Is there evidence that that is Hamas's tactic here?
They do it.
I want to be incredibly clear. Obviously, I'm sitting here and watching this, so I'm not going to give you accurate analysis or information about whether there's a...
Davey, I say this with all due respect. You're dead fucking wrong, dude.
Deliberate and concrete strategy on the part of Hamas to actually use human shields. But it almost doesn't matter because you still end up with collateral damage. You still end up with loss of civilian life on the part of Palestinians in many ways because of the way Hamas fights. Whether they do it deliberately or by default, it doesn't matter.
Bilal Saab from the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. I want to thank you very much indeed, sir, for your time and for your analysis on the program.
And also, Davey, I would like you to answer the question about southern Gaza, because you have to admit that if the goal is to eliminate Hamas, there has to be some kind of invasion or full-blown occupation of southern Gaza as well. I have heard nothing. I've heard no appetite for that. So, you know what I'm saying? So if you could address that one as well, that would be really great. But there you go. Absolutely essential. France 24. There will be, I believe. I see. You got to give Davey credit. Okay, he's not a coward. He can take confrontation, and he does have an answer. Davey, could you please clarify that you don't think that that is morally correct, that Israel shouldn't be doing these things? Just so that people understand, you're making a cold assessment, a military assessment of the situation from your observation, from your point of view, that you don't agree with Israel and their invasion of Gaza. So there's the link to this segment if you want to watch it yourself.
After delivering a
Starmer used to condemn Israeli war crimes. He refuses. This is okay. This is no. We'll do that one later. Keir Starmer's a hypocrite. End of story. There you go. He's a hypocrite and he's a careerist and he's just trying to please, the most powerful lobbyists and entities. I believe Leon's already gone, right? Leon, you're already gone. So Leon only sticks around for like 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and then he's gone. A new Nakba, settler violence forces Palestinians out of West Bank villages. So no, I did not say Gaza. I said West Bank. So we're also just seeing West Bank. The PLO does not agree with Hamas, has actually criticized Hamas, has come out and criticized Hamas. Davey, you're kind of silent. Do you disagree with me that you think is this justified? Do you think Israel is justified in what it's doing in Gaza? You're just a little quiet, buddy, getting me worried. So no, we're seeing you guys are still talking about gas and shit. Write your Hollywood scripts, okay? Because real life isn't that way. Do any of you guys want to talk about the reality of airlocks? You don't think these guys have airlocks? You don't think that they're ready for, gas and water attacks on their tunnels? A new Nakba. Settler violence forces Palestinians out of West Bank villages. So Israel is taking advantage of all their goodwill to also attack the West Bank and to continue to occupy, install settlers, right? They're settlers. They should have gone about the invasion a different way. They should have created temporary resettlement camps. Israel doesn't do temporary resettlement. They have literally never in their entire history ever respected their right to return. But yeah, this is your idea. I asked you for your idea. So temporary resettlement camps and green corridors into Israel proper to evacuate civilians. I think Israel does have a right to respond. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Israel does have a right to respond. And like I've explained before, there's no negotiating with Hamas. With that said, there is no solution to terrorism at the barrel of a gun. You're not going to be able to shoot your way out of this. So you're still your strategy is wrong, because it's still like, oh, we got to send in the military. That's the only solution. Davey, can you please remind me how successful the United States military industrial complex was in doing exactly what you are describing in Iraq and Afghanistan? Was that a big success? I recall some mission accomplished, but the weed, it's all the Mary Jane. It's all foggy. Because last time I checked, Taliban has never been stronger running Afghanistan. ISIL is not destroyed. ISIL still exists. ISIS still exists. These organizations seem stronger than ever. It seems weird that the trillions and trillions of dollars spent by the military-industrial complex of one of the most strongest militaries on planet Earth wasn't capable of doing what you are describing as just an easy thing. Well, all they need to do is this and that. Oh, no situation's the same. So, Davey, I'm going to have to ask you this. Number one, what is the one thing that you think Israel is going to do differently that the military-industrial complex of the strongest military on the face of human Earth, on planet Earth here, didn't do? So what is Israel going to do that the United States military isn't going to do to, quote unquote, eliminate Hamas? Because I'd be interested to know. There must be some kind of magic trick, right? Something Uncle Sam didn't think of. So anyway, Israel is taking advantage of the goodwill to further its occupation and elimination of the Palestinians in the West Bank, because of course they are. Life in Zanuta, I think Israel won't follow what I said. I think Israel will close off the area and not distinguish between civilians and Hamas. If you could just do me a favor and please say that you don't like that. That's something you disagree with, right? Please just let everybody know that you're not a cold-hearted bastard, okay? I know you're just being analytical. I know, because I know you, David. You're just being analytical. Life in Zanuta, a Palestinian village atop a windy ridge in the desolate south. And that is not moral. Yes, I disagree. Thank you, David. Desolate South Hebron Hills, deep in the occupied West Bank, has never been easy. The community are mostly herders who raise goats and sheep through the barren landscape, scorching summers and freezing winters. So obviously they need to be removed from the just dangerous, barbarians, right? And who have steadfastly refused to leave their homes despite the mounting difficulties posed by the Israeli Defense Force. Now, remember, these guys understand the fact that Israel has never once in its existence respected the right to return, which is an international law, kind of understanding that, if people have been displaced, they have a right to come back to their home, for a true and real peace to be created. So they understand that, and that's why they're not leaving, because they understand that there is no, temporary resettlement and whatnot. No, they lose their farm if they leave. As I said, I think Israel is invading incorrectly. They're not trying. No, but you're a whole lot. You're still wrong, because you think an invasion is necessary when an invasion is not going to fix this. You're not going to shoot your way out of this one. Bang, bang, shoot, shoot. Davey, that's your entire framework is incorrect. You have to accept that Israel has to start negotiations, has to start ending the occupation. That that Israel needs to be pressured into doing this. There is no military solution to this problem. You don't defeat terrorism with guns. You don't. You defeat it with a healthy middle class. That's how you defeat terrorism. But after weeks of intense settler violence in the aftermath of the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th, Zantua's 150 residents have made a collective decision to leave. Wow. So after all that struggle, they're actually leaving now. Armed settlers, some in reservist army uniform. So this is the pogroms that we're talking about. These are citizens, settlers, basically occupiers, that have been kind of pseudo-deputized by the Israeli government to attack and expel citizens, Palestinian citizens, from their homes in an attempt to occupy and steal their land. You can't negotiate with leadership that wants to kill you. Not true. Not true. Davey, if that was true, explain to me how Israel was able to get their soldier back after, for negotiating for 1,000 Hamas soldiers. That sounds to me like it's an organization that you could. No, that doesn't mean, there's certain limits there, of course, but that doesn't mean it's complete. It's just completely impossible. The only solution is the barrel of a gun. You're wrong. You're wrong. In fact, you could empower the PLO, and the PLO has said, look, we'll take over as the government for the Gaza Strip, and start that process of being antagonistic against Hamas. But you need to stop doing shit like this in the West Bank. You need to stop occupying and blowing us up in the West Bank, and then maybe we'll consider, trying to be the legitimate government of the Gaza Strip and starting a process of negotiation, yada yada yada. But we can't do that when you're fucking occupying and blowing us up. And here comes Davey. Well, the only solution is a proper invasion, and we just need to invade harder. We just got to do a right invasion. You're wrong. You're wrong, dude. The solution to this problem is politics. It's not, there's no magic missile. There's no magic, fucking Metal Gear Solid tunnel destroying weapon, fucking Metal Gear Rex walking through the battlefield in Palestine. It's not happening, dude. You gotta remove yourself from this. There's a military solution mindset, because there isn't. And this is exactly what I was talking about with Ukraine and what I was worried about, because now everybody thinks that, oh, well, it worked in Ukraine. How come it doesn't work everywhere else? So anyway, 150 residents have made a collective decision to leave. Armed settlers, some in reservist army uniforms, some covering their faces, have begun breaking into their homes at night, beating up adults, destroying and stealing belongings, and terrifying the children. So you're in your home that you and your family have lived in for like over 100 years. Israeli people come into your house, fuck up the place, beat you up. And the Israeli police, the Israeli government, the Israeli army don't say a thing. They acquiesce. They if they got in front of a camera and Wolf Blitzer asked them, is that a crime? They would go, oh yeah, that's a crime. But they know it's happening. They're not enforcing the law. They know it's intimidation with the attempt to expatriate, to exile the Palestinian people from their territory. And this is a pattern that's been happening for literally decades. For literally decades. We got a little report here. Here we go. Davey, sounds like a botched negotiation. Say that to the family of the IDF soldier. Homie, I mean, you're wrong on this one, dude. You really are. It's all justified because of my book and because of the right-wing government agrees with me and the police aren't stopping me, so it must be morally okay. I'd like to remind everybody, this is the West Bank. This is not the Gaza Strip. Hamas is not in the West Bank.
The inhabitants are...
Well, you're okay with that, 1 to 1,000 disparity when it comes to civilian deaths. Why are you not okay with it when it comes to hostage negotiations, Davey? You're perfectly okay with the disparity of death. Or maybe I'm speaking for you. Maybe you're not okay with the 4 to 1, 5 to 1 death ratio of Palestinians versus Israelis. How come you're not cool with it in hostage negotiations?
Packing up their belongings and leaving their land.
Great, so you won. Yeah, good job, BB. Great job, Israel. You used violence and intimidation to remove people from their homes. And you're going to move in some overweight New Yorker, right? Some American you've just handed over Israeli citizenship because he promised he'd be an occupier on the front lines. Great. I'm so tired of this. I've been pushing against this for like ever since I became politically aware. Okay, to the people, to the doubters, to the haters that are saying, "What are you talking about? This is just an anti-terrorism operation. There's no program to, expel the Palestinians from their territory. What, you're being anti-Semitic because you're just assuming that, that this isn't Israel. How dare you assume that this isn't Israel defending itself? That this is Israel being an occupying force, being an empire." Taking another country, stealing another country by force. How dare you? You're anti-Semitic. Well, let me give you some proof. Leaked Israeli plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza. The plan advocates the forced transfer of the population of the Gaza Strip to Sinai permanently and calls for the international community to be leveraged to assist the move. Breaking. Miko Mint expose shows that the directive to deport 2.4 million Palestinians out of occupied Gaza and into Egypt and beyond has been officially endorsed by Israel's Ministry of Intelligence on the 13th of October. A war crime in the making. It is a war crime to displace people, to implement what is called collective punishment. It's also good to note that Hamas is not the democratically elected government of the Gaza Strip anymore. They no longer hold elections. There was a sham election. And I do think that the Gazans voted for Hamas, but the Gazan citizens no longer have the opportunity to vote Hamas out. There is no such thing as opposition parties in Hamas. Scooch that over a bit. That didn't work. Move this over. Got the background leaking through the window, and it's making my OCD flip out. Okay. Second part of here: Israeli Ministry of Intelligence deportation directive outlines. Listen to this. Outlines. These are official documents, folks. This isn't some Alex Jones dickhead on the internet, shitting off at the mouth here. He's beautiful. Israel's Ministry of Intelligence deportation directive outlines the 4 stages. Listen. Number 1, a call on Palestinian civilians to vacate the north. They're never coming back. Leave. And what's a good way to get people to leave? Terrorism. Who's the source? Here you go, Davey. Dig in, please. Please prove me wrong. Please tell me that this is fake. Please prove to me that this is fake, that this is not official government, the official stance of the Israeli government of complete eradication. Okay, please. Hey, it's on Reddit. Hey, no. This is all fake. It's all fake, guys. Israel just wants peace with the Palestinians. That's right. Israel minister. So number 1, a call on Palestinian civilians to vacate North Gaza and allow for land operations. Number 2, sequential land operations from north to south. So here we go. That's what so South Gaza. So there we go. So there you go. Yeah, Davey is correct. That's the intention, right? We're going to start in the north and then push the Palestinians out of the south, like you're squeezing toothpaste out of a tube, right? Number 3, leaving routes open across Rafah, because they're going to need a place to go unless you're going to kill them all, right? So you got to have some corridors open. Establishing. Learn more. Okay. For anyone doubting the document, Netanyahu has acknowledged it and said it was basically just a thought exercise, which isn't exactly comforting. So it's just a thought exercise. This is not they're just having some fun, shooting shit against the wall, guys. Just, having a discussion between the boys, An Israeli government ministry has drafted a wartime proposal to transfer the Gaza Strip's 2.3 million people. By the way, I've been saying 3.2. Sorry about that. It is 2.3. Or 2.1, 2.2. I always hear different numbers, but around 2.2, 2.3, whatever. Million people, whatever, not that many. Sinai Peninsula, drawing condemnation from the Palestinians and worsening tensions with Cairo. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu office played down the report compiled by the intelligence ministry as a hypothetical exercise. We're just, like I said, just thinking about it. Come on, we're not going to do it. A concept paper, but its conclusions deepened long-standing Egyptian fears that Israel wants to make Gaza into Egypt's problem. Yes, that's correct. And revived for Palestinians memories of their greatest trauma, the Nakba, where over 750,000 Palestinians were expatriated, removed by force from their land. The uprooting of hundreds of thousands of people who fled or were forced from their homes during the fighting surrounding Israel's creation in 1948. That's right, Israel has been at war since its creation. Quote, we are against transfer of any place in any form, and we consider it a red line that we will not allow to be crossed. Nabil Abu Ridinia, spokesman for Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, said of the report, what happened in 1948 will not be allowed to happen again. Okay. Seems like it's happening. A mass displacement, Abu Rede said, would be tantamount to declaring a new war. Yeah, and that is true. And I think that's why we're seeing such a heavy propaganda push, this shaming of anybody that disagrees with this narrative, because it needs to be rock solid. There needs to be a rock solid alibi and justification for full-blown total war for the next, 1 to 2 years at the least. Yeah, war has been declared, but it's not, they're talking about like an intifada, right? Where every Palestinian in the West Bank and Hamas is obligated to participate in fighting against Israel. The document is dated October 13th, 6 days after Hamas militants killed more than 1,400 people in southern Israel and took over 240 hostages in an attack that provoked a devastating Israeli war in Gaza. It was first published by Sarika Mekomit, a local news site. So there you go, Davey. There's all your sources. Go ahead and dig in. And please, like I said, prove me wrong. It looks like I said, it's not official. It's an official person from the official government, but BB just said, hey, we're just thinking about it, just throwing shit against the wall. We still haven't taken off the table just killing everybody, by the way. We understand there's more efficient ways of doing this. We're looking back into the history. A small regime from the 1940s was able to destroy millions of people very efficiently using a series of camps and ovens. So we're looking into how we might be able to modernize that to fix the Israel or Palestinian problem. There we go. So hey, it's we're just shooting the shit. We're just trying stuff out, man. We're just making sure, hey, you never know. You never know. So I don't think we're going to have time for this whole interview. And sorry, Davey, too bad, so sad. But literally a person who quit their job at the UN, it looks like it was a scheduled resignation. It doesn't look like he was quitting in protest, by the way. And the headline kind of makes it sound like it. But he was literally working at the UN just yesterday. So this is a very relevant person. This isn't Medea Benjamin, making a goddamn fool of herself. This is a legitimate, serious person, and this is a legitimate, serious interview. So we're going to listen to it. Too bad, so sad, Davey. Oh, Davey hates Democracy Now! And quite frankly, I have a lot of criticism on Democracy Now! For their coverage of Ukraine. Not so much as their headline coverage of the Ukraine conflict, because they talk about Russia's atrocities, but they're insistent. I mean, I swear to God, Amy Goodman quoted Scott Ritter unironically as to defend one of the statements or things that were being, some kind of point that was being made. I don't remember what. I just remember being shocked that Amy Goodman over here quoting Scott Ritter, not Scott Ritter, the convicted pedophile Scott Ritter. And, woke patriot has said in the past, oh, well, that's a perfect way to, calling someone a pedophile and, destroying their career is a great way to destroy someone's career if they're very dangerous. Okay, that's fine. But it happened. There's evidence, I don't know. Someone prove me wrong about Scott Ritter being a pedophile. Someone give me some hard investigative evidence, because right now everything that I've seen leads towards Scott Ritter being a legitimate pedophile. And Democracy Now! Over here quoting him still as if he's a legitimate journalist. You know, it'd be like me quoting Jeffrey Toobin. Not the same. Not the same. Jeffrey Toobin was just jacking it.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org,
Just agree with you.
The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
Don't.
A top United Nations official in New York has resigned and accused the United Nations of failing to address what he calls a textbook case of genocide unfolding in Gaza. Craig McIver is a longtime international human rights lawyer who served as director of the New York office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. He'd worked at the United Nations since 1992 and lived in Gaza in the 1990s. In a letter addressed to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, Craig McIver wrote, "In Gaza, civilian homes, schools, churches, mosques, and medical institutions are wantonly attacked as thousands of civilians are massacred. In the West Bank, including occupied Jerusalem, homes are seized and reassigned based entirely on race, and violent settler pogroms are accompanied by Israeli military units.
100%
Across
true.
the land, apartheid rules."
That's true.
Craig McIver went on to write, "What's more, the governments of the United States, the United Kingdom, and much of Europe are wholly complicit in the horrific assault. Not only are these governments refusing to meet their treaty obligations to ensure respect for the Geneva Conventions, but they're in fact actively arming the assault, providing economic and intelligence support, and giving political..."
Like I said before, Lenny, the resignation was not out of anger. It was, I think, the end of his, he was done. It was a scheduled resignation. So that apparently he had started the paperwork in like April or March or something. So like I said, it's kind of deceiving. It's kind of being framed like he quit in anger. He quit the UN in anger. I don't think that's the case. I don't see anything to discredit his claim about those documents, other than the fact that he is quoting documents supplied by an independent small newspaper. It could easily be a fake document. Okay, Davey. Do you think it's a fake document? I don't think it's a fake document. Because if it was a fake document, Netanyahu would say it's a fake document or not even acknowledge it. But he acknowledged its existence and said, "Oh yeah, we were just spitballing." That's not, So to me, that's Netanyahu acknowledging the existence of the document and basically acknowledging that document is authentic.
"And diplomatic cover for Israel's atrocities," unquote. On Tuesday, the UN released a statement about McIver's resignation, saying, quote, "I can confirm he's retiring today. He informed the UN in March of his upcoming retirement, which takes effect tomorrow. The views in his letter made public today are his personal views."
Yeah, I mean, don't worry. The UN still absolutely thinks Israel has a right to completely fuck over the Palestinian peoples. It's just his personal. It's, we don't think it's an apartheid, even though there's clear evidence in front of us. We don't agree with any of this liberal hippie stuff. Come on, guys.
The UN said. Craig McIver joins us now in New York, the first day he's not working for the United Nations. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Thank you, Amy. Good to be here.
So talk about why you left.
Well, I originally registered my concerns in writing to the High Commissioner in March, as you heard from that statement, in the wake of a wave of human rights violations on the West Bank, including the pogrom in Hawara at that time. And at that time, I complained really about what I saw as a trepidatious response.
Well, I mean, Davey, you make a good point. I've only heard secondhand statements. I haven't seen a video or audio of Netanyahu making that statement. So maybe you're correct. Maybe he didn't acknowledge the document. I'm gonna be a bad journalist here, and I'm just gonna I'm just gonna have in my head that he did do that, but I'm eager to be proven wrong.
By many in the United Nations, and an effort to try to silence some of the human rights critique of UN officials, including myself. I admit to feeling a great deal of frustration, and at that moment indicating that I would be resigning from the UN.
Okay, so interesting. He did resign because of the plight of the Palestinians. He just resigned before October 7th in response to the violence against the West Bank. Okay, so he He's actually ahead of, yeah. So it was him resigning out of anger for how the UN was treating the Palestinian people. That's interesting.
Effective this month. So, of course, the situation got much worse since then, which is why I was, particularly the events in Gaza, which is why I was compelled to write this latest letter to the High Commissioner to put on record my very serious concerns about how we were failing to address the unfolding events in the occupied territories.
Oh, shit, Sherlock.
What do you think the United Nations, the United States, the West, UK should be doing right now?
Well, I think there is an obligation on the part of all member states of the United Nations, including those states in the West, to respond in accordance with their obligations under international law, including international humanitarian law. My central point in the most recent letter was that we had effectively left international law behind when the international community embraced the Oslo process, which sort of raised up notions of political expediency above the requirements of international law. And that was a real loss for human rights in Palestine. I think there is an obligation on the part of all states, not just to respect international humanitarian law and international human rights law, but under the Geneva Conventions to ensure respect. And it's clear that many states, including the United States itself, have are not only in breach of their obligation to ensure respect vis-a-vis those states over which they have influence, in this case Israel, but have been actively complicit, actively engaged in arming and diplomatic cover, in political support, intelligence support, and so on. That is a breach of international humanitarian law.
Fuck, man,
we need the opposite of that. We need all states, members of the United Nations, to use whatever influence they have to ensure an end to these attacks on civilians in Gaza, to ensure as well accountability for the perpetrators, redress for the victims, protection for the vulnerable there. It's interesting, Amy, we have a formula at the United Nations that is applied to virtually every other.
Thank you, Clutch Cargo. You know, maybe it's all, you know, the argument is that the evidence is manufactured, that, you know, that it's an attack against Scott Ritter because he's such a good journalist. There's a lot of really good evidence to prove that he's a pedophile, including what you just mentioned. But, you know, show me some evidence that this has been manufactured, that Scott Ritter is in fact a victim of a psyop or an operation, you know, by the government or whatever government to discredit him. It's, you know, it's convenient. It's exactly what a convicted pedophile would say, is that I'm a victim of the deep state, basically. But let's not forget that those are techniques that are used against individuals that are being too influential for their own good, and they need to be silenced. So I want to acknowledge the reality of that, but I don't want to make excuses for Scott Ritter either. I would like to, you know, hey, if someone has some legitimate investigative proof that it was made up, you know, it's made up evidence that was taken seriously by a court, and the court then legitimized that, you know, okay, let me see it. Let me see it. I'd love to see it. Prove me wrong about Scott Ritter, you know.
Conflict situation. But when it comes to the situation in Israel and Palestine, there's a different set of rules, apparently. And that's, I think, a big source of my frustration. Where is the transitional justice process? Where is the UN protection force to protect all civilians? Where is the tribunal?
No, UN completely mum on this. Well, Israel is defending itself. End of story. It's unlike the 90s and the early 2000s. There does seem to be a much bigger pushback against what is obviously a lie.
For accountability. Where is the action on the part of the Security Council, the only mechanism in the United Nations that has enforcement to ensure protection in the occupied territories? Obviously, every effort in the Security Council is vetoed by the United States itself, and further indication of the kind of complicity about which I am referring. And I think the other thing that needs to happen in the international community is that we have to abandon the failed paradigms of the past on a political level and get back to the roots, which is international law, international human rights. What has happened in the context of the so-called Oslo process, the two-state solution, the UN quartet, is that they have acted effectively as a smokescreen behind which we have seen further and worsening dispossession of Palestinians.
No, exactly. The UN being silent on this stuff is acquiescing to these actions and basically saying, it's okay for Israel to do this.
Massive atrocities such as those as we are witnessing now, the loss of home.
On its face, Clutch Cargo, on its face, it's fucking disgusting. And honestly, the left needs to be bitch slapped. The commie, tanky left need to be bitch slapped. I'm so sick and tired of them dominating because they don't represent me, dog. Mao Zedong and fucking Stalin don't represent me. So they need to be fucking bitch slapped straight up out of this entire political narrative, these fucking tankies. Twitter was the fucking worst thing in the world for these people, you know, because it seems like they're ever present and this is the narrative of the left, and it's not.
Homes and land, further settlement activity.
Thank you, Davey. We'll show that after this interview.
It's an open secret inside the halls of the United Nations that the so-called two-state solution is effectively impossible now. There's nothing left for a sustainable state for the Palestinian people, and takes no account of the fundamental human rights of the Palestinian people. The new paradigm has to be one based upon equality of all people there. Equal rights for Christians, Muslims, and Jews, and that needs to be the new approach. And I think as well, you know, it's interesting that this year we are commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted in 1948. That same year, the Nakba occurred in Palestine, and apartheid was adopted in South Africa. We have seen, because of a consistent international law and international human rights approach in the UN and the international community, that apartheid in South Africa fell. We did not take the same approach in Palestine. We've deferred to these political processes, and as a result, not only have we not seen an end to the oppression of the Palestinian people, we've seen a continuing worsening of the situation.
So you're a longtime human rights lawyer. I want you to respond. I played this already for Youssef Hamash in Gaza right now, in Khan Yunis, to respond. But I'd like you to respond to it as well. After Israel's attack on Jabalia yesterday, the IDF spokesperson, Israeli Defense Force spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, appeared on CNN and was interviewed by Wolf Blitzer.
Okay, good. I didn't have the Wolf Blitzer clip queued up. So here's that Wolf Blitzer clip where you know, where he's like, man, did you even get the guy? You know, did you even accomplish the mission that you killed all these people for? And just a reminder, Wolf Blitzer is pro-Israeli. He agrees with this self-defense no matter what narrative, and he is, you know, he's on TV desperately trying to help the IDF make excuses for its barbarism. And even he is having a hard time doing this.
But you know that there are a lot of refugees, a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children in that refugee camp as well, right?
This is the tragedy of war, Wolf. I mean, we, as you know, we've been saying for days, move south. Civilians that are not involved with Hamas, please move south.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little bit more information.
This is a refugee camp that Israel told the Palestinians was a safe place to be, by the way.
You knew there were civilians there, you knew there were refugees, all sorts of refugees, but you decided to still drop a bomb on that refugee camp attempting to kill the Hamas commander. By the way, was he killed?
I can't confirm yet. There'll be more updated. Yes, we know that he was killed. About the civilians there, we're doing everything we can to minimize.
So
dropping two massive fucking bombs doesn't sound like we're doing everything we can to minimize, you know, it's ridiculous. It's absurd on its face.
He's saying they're doing everything they can to minimize. He's talking about Ibrahim Biari, whom Israel's identified as Hamas's commander of the Jabalia Center Battalion, saying that he was killed in those recent strikes. Can you respond to every aspect of what he said? They were trying to get a high-value target, as they put it, and they are not trying to kill civilians.
Well, I think what's important in that interview is that is another of many indications of intent on the part of Israeli authorities that will be very important in a court of law. He has said very openly that they knew of the concentrations of civilians there, and yet, in violation of the principle of distinction in international humanitarian law, and on the pretext of killing one combatant wiped out the better part of an entire refugee camp, densely populated refugee camp. And I think what's been interesting in this war is the very open statement of intents. I referred in my letter to the case for genocide, which is happening now. And you know, genocide is a very politicized term, often abused. But in this case, the hardest part of proving genocide has been proven for us with these very open statements of genocidal intent by Israeli officials, including the prime minister and the president and senior cabinet ministers and military officials, who in their public statements have indicated very clearly their intention not to distinguish between civilians and combatants and to carry out the kinds of wholesale slaughter that we are witnessing in Gaza. That is not a justification in international law, saying that there was a combatant there for that very disproportionate use of firepower against what was a civilian target. And that's what we've been seeing in all of Gaza, from the north to the south. The other thing is this claim that, well, we told them to move south, and therefore we can kill everybody who didn't move. This is an extremely dangerous and unlawful tactic that is being used. First, because we know that evacuations in Gaza, in the best of times, in this densely populated, small territory with 2.3 million civilians crowded in, with very small territory.
I mean, honestly, it looks more like we got several craters here. Maybe is it just these two? Looks like more than two. Looks like we have like several, maybe three. Maybe a fourth one over here. I'm curious how they would handle the tactical situation. Who, Israel? And you're talking about urban warfare? Well, let's not forget that they also have to worry about subterranean warfare as well, if the goal is to eliminate Hamas.
In the best of times, in this densely populated, small territory with 2.3 million civilians crowded in, with very limited infrastructure, is a huge challenge. But most of Gaza has been bombed into rubble. It is just not physically possible for civilians to move en masse.
Yeah, they're not kicking doors, they're blowing up doors, but Hamas can fight in the rubble. You know, I mean, imagine you got a house or a pile of rubble, you don't know where the shots are coming from.
In the ways that Israel has required them to do so. And we know, already well documented, that when they do so, they're still subjected to bombings even in the south of the Gaza Strip. So all of this, it seems to me, is evidence of intent and a prima facie case for violations of the laws of war.
Israel's called for UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to resign after he said Hamas's October 7th attack did not happen in a vacuum. This is Israel's UN ambassador, Gilad Erdan.
Mr. Secretary General, the UN was established.
By the way, this guy and his team just a couple days ago wore yellow stars to one of their Security Council meetings or something, equating October 7th to a new Holocaust. There's like a Holocaust organization that criticized them for that action. Just want to give you an example of how extreme these people are.
To prevent atrocities, to prevent such atrocities like the barbaric atrocities that Hamas committed. But
yeah, so it needs to be said, but I will say it. It's incredibly ironic to be standing up and grandstanding about atrocities while committing atrocities, legitimate atrocities. A refugee camp? You don't even know if you got the guy?
The UN is failing.
That's an atrocity.
The UN is failing, and you, Mr. Secretary General, have lost all morality and impartiality. Because he said October 7th didn't happen in a vacuum. A fact as clear as day. Oh, you're an extreme anti-Semite, you hate Jews, you're against Israel because you acknowledge the reality that we've been oppressing the Palestinians for decades. Say those terrible words that these heinous attacks did not happen in a vacuum, you are tolerating terrorism. And by tolerating terrorism, you are justifying.
Nobody's buying this. Honestly, nobody's serious is buying this weepy crocodile tear bullshit. You know, if they all they need to do is not commit atrocities, and then people would be all on board for this. They would totally agree with these narratives. But while Israel is committing atrocious genocidal actions, this looks like a absurd theater.
Justifying terrorism.
That's Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Craig McIver. Your response?
Well, of course, you can imagine why the ambassador would want to start the clock only in October and to ignore the decades upon decades of persecution against the Palestinian people.
He's, claws, crocodile tears. He's talking about the sanctity of life while agreeing with extreme atrocities against human beings. Yes, it is crocodile tears. You claimed to. So are Israeli lives more important than Palestinian lives? Is that your argument? That, well, it's not as bad because we're killing animals? Is that it? All life is sacred. All life is sacred. And you don't get to grandstand about the sanctity of life while you're committing atrocities and human rights fucking aggressions against life. Yes, it makes you an actor. It makes you a fucking dishonest actor. Yes.
In Gaza, in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, inside Israel proper. But that is not the kind of assessment that leads to peace or leads to an improved situation on the ground. The Secretary General was doing his job. He had condemned the loss of civilian life in the Hamas attack, and he also criticized not just what Israel was doing in Gaza, but all of the events that have led up to this situation. And that's what I mean by a need to break from the failed paradigm of the past. We really need to get into something that says that human beings are entitled to human rights under international law, and that the duty of the international community is to ensure protection for all under the rule of law, but also accountability for perpetrators and redress for victims. So,
answer the question. Are Israeli lives more important than Palestinian lives? Because that's the crux of my argument. You can't grandstand about the sanctity of human life while committing atrocities against it. There is no but. There is no but. You don't get to grandstand about how important life is while you're fucking blowing people up.
So I am not surprised at that statement. We've seen a lot of extreme statements from that particular ambassador, a lot of theater as well. I don't think we should allow it to distract us to what's happening on the ground.
And by the way, the only proof we have that Hamas HQs are underneath these buildings is one fucking photo from the Israeli government that has lied to us and misinformed us this entire time. I have not seen proof one of Hamas HQs underneath these buildings outside of a single fucking photo from the Israeli government. And no, I don't trust Bibi Netanyahu and Ben Gvir to give me accurate information. Just as much as I don't trust the numbers coming out of Hamas either.
Which is the wholesale loss of life of innocent civilians in their thousands, including thousands of children in the Gaza Strip, and the need to get to an immediate ceasefire and then to shift into a new approach that will prevent this from happening again and again and again.
I'm wondering about the role of Karim Khan, the lead prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. I think he was in...
Yeah, where are the battle lines drawn in an open-air prison? In a fucking contained space? Where are the battle lines? It's the entire space. It's the entire strip. That's the battle line, is this entire prison.
Rafah just a few days ago. We see the world's response, or the West's response, when it came to...
Clause, the crux of your argument is that the atrocity that was committed against Israel is so great that all of this civilian death is justified, is fucking incorrect and disgusting and, quite frankly, technically racist. So even though you're saying Palestinian lives and Israeli lives are equally sacrosanct, you're also trying to make the argument that it's fully justified for Israel to commit these atrocities on a daily. It's not even going to work. your goal, right? You agree with Israel in eliminating Hamas. So when are you going to invade southern Gaza then? Do you agree with invading southern Gaza after the occupation and elimination of the 1.1 million Palestinians in the Gaza city is complete? Do you agree that Israel should then invade and occupy southern Gaza as well? And gosh, we don't want Hamas to come back. Why would they ever leave? Why would Israel ever leave the Gaza Strip? We don't want Hamas to come back. Better for us just to take it over.
To Russia invading Ukraine and occupying Ukraine. Karim Khan, very soon after, opened a whole investigation.
All right, Claus, I'm putting words in your mouth. Please correct me.
To crimes against humanity that Putin was committing in Ukraine. Can you respond to the difference in approach to Russia and Ukraine and Israel and the occupied territories? Officially, international law, the OPT, the occupied Palestinian territories.
Well, there has been a stunning inconsistency with the rapidity with which the court was able to move and the prosecutor was able to move with regard to Ukraine, and the years upon years in which it has dragged its feet with regard to Palestine. This is just one of many critiques of the court, including the fact that it does not have a very strong record of holding northern countries, Israel, the United States, and others, to account for their crimes.
And he doesn't have a response to anything of what I just said, throwing out an ad hominem attack. You got nothing, dude. Just say that you agree with the elimination of the Palestinian people. Just enough. You tried your little gymnastics. You tried to get me in a corner. Crocodile tears. Oh no. And you're out of fucking fuel. So here you go. So go ahead and enjoy your timeout. I'm gonna get back to the serious business of covering this very important issue. I'm not brainwashed, bitch. I don't need to read the rest of that. Bye. You're brainwashed. Why? Because I think killing innocent civilians is fucking wrong. That one crime doesn't justify another. The entire premise that we're going to be able to fix this with an invasion and occupation and bombing campaign is completely wrong. So stop the fucking theatrics and acrobatics in an effect to try and defend this terrible fucking strategy that will not result in the end of Hamas. It won't. Just like it didn't result in the end of ISIL or ISIS or the Taliban when the massive trillion-dollar military-industrial complex of the United States attempted to do the same.
Under international criminal law, and yet is very anxious to move forward on cases in the global south. Now, that is not pathetic. To condemn the court. The court is a young institution. It needs to be strengthened. It needs to insulate itself from the kinds of political pressure that have led to its inaction in the case of Palestine. But our hope ultimately is the peaceful resolution of disputes through the use of international law. And if that's going to happen, we need a robust and fair international criminal court that doesn't provide for...
Davey, you don't think the IDF deliberately targets civilians, huh? Really? What, because of this bombing? Because they're making a claim? What about all the other refugee camps and fucking crossings, civilian crossings that have been bombed? They never justified those with, oh, we got somebody. This is the politics of revenge. And yes, absolutely, the IDF is killing innocent civilians intentionally. This is a terror campaign to get people to leave northern Gaza so that they can occupy and take over the whole region. You're still over here thinking the IDF are operating in some kind of framework, that this is some humanitarian framework to free the Palestinians from Hamas? You're delusional. You're delusional. I don't think the IDF leadership deliberately targets civilians. Wrong. But they are careless with preventing civilian deaths. Way to carry water for this fucking... We're talking about the IDF that has intentionally sniped journalists in the fucking face. On camera proof. They're willing to shoot through a crowd of civilians if it means killing their target. You're wrong. You're carrying water for this, dude. It's pathetic. It's pathetic because you're holding on to this idea that there's a military solution to this problem. There isn't.
exceptionalism.
It's the entire fucking crux of your argument, and it's dead wrong.
For powerful countries of the North, like Israel, for example, but that holds all perpetrators of international crimes to account. The court has a long way to go before...
There is literally a video of an IDF tank opening fire on a civilian vehicle. There is no indication that that vehicle had a fucking terrorist in it. It's slaughter. It is a direct attack against civilians. It is terrorism so that people leave northern Gaza. That's what this is.
Or it's going to have the reputation that will bring confidence globally that it's meeting its mandate under the Rome Statute.
On Monday, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre compared pro-Palestinian protesters to the white supremacists who took part in the deadly Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017. She made the comment in response to a question from Fox News' Peter Doocy.
Doesn't Biden think the anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists?
What I can say is what we've been very clear about this. When it comes to anti-Semitism, there is no place. We have to make sure that we speak against it very loud and be.
They have to frame the argument as anti-Israel. It has to be you hate Jews, you hate Israel, you hate the whole thing, because that's the only way any of this is justified, is if their false framing is what the agreed upon reality is.
Be very clear about that. Remember, what the president decided when the president decided to run for president is what he saw in Charlottesville in 2017, when he saw neo-Nazis marching down the streets of Charlottesville with vile anti-Semitic just hatred. And he was very clear then, and he's very clear now. He's taken actions against this over the past 2 years, and he's continued to be clear. There is no place for this type of vile and despite this kind of rhetoric.
Davey, you're playing semantics with women and children's lives, dude. Just stop. Just stop, man. You're literally playing fucking semantics with people's lives, man. Oh, it wasn't deliberate. It wasn't deliberate. What, you can read their fucking minds? Because all I see is their actions, and their actions are very clear. Direct, deliberate attacks against civilian targets in an attempt to terrorize the population and get them to leave. Just stop.
So that's President Biden's spokesperson, Karine Jean-Pierre. Craig McIver, your response.
Well, I think one of the most disturbing aspects of this current situation in the North, in countries like the U.S. and in Europe, has been this rather unprecedented crackdown on human rights defenders speaking up to defend the human rights of people in Gaza during this situation. And that has come from official statements that tried to critique in that way people who are defending human rights, and to compare them with far-right neo-fascist protesters, for example. I mean, it's an outrageous comparison to make, and it doesn't stop there. We have also seen very strong efforts on the part of government institutions, including local governments and state governments and the federal government and universities and employers and others to punish people for daring to speak up, criticizing the human rights violations that are happening, or criticizing the U.S. role in these violations. But I think what is most hopeful, Amy, and where there is a glimmer of hope, which is, I have to say, moved me very much, it's that people are not allowing themselves to be intimidated by these tactics.
Yes.
We have seen massive demonstrations in all parts of the country and
Historic.
in Europe from people many times risking arrest, risking police beatings, risking other consequences because they refuse to allow this to go forward and to have the human rights claim be silenced. And I think most encouraging, we have seen, just a few blocks from here, a few days ago, we saw a large group organized by Jewish Voices for Peace, if not now, of Jewish protesters standing up and saying, "Not in our name," and taking over Grand Central Station, and in one move, stripping away the Israeli propaganda point that they are somehow acting in the defense of Jews. Jewish people are not represented by Israel. These protesters have made that perfectly clear. Israel pushes an old anti-Semitic trope that it somehow represents Jewish people around the world.
Yes.
Not only
yes, it is anti-Semitic to claim that Israel speaks for all Jewish people. Yes.
is that not factual, but it's very dangerous. And everyone needs to know that Israel is a state that's responsible for its own crimes. And that responsibility does not extend to our Jewish brothers and sisters, many of whom are standing up alongside Muslim and Christian and others in demonstrations across this country and across Europe, saying that this must end.
I wanted to get your response to a comment in The Guardian by Anne Bayefsky, who directs Touro College's Institute on Human Rights and the Holocaust in New York, who accused you of overt anti-Semitism, saying you used UN letterhead to call for wiping Israel off the map. Craig Mokhiber, if you could respond.
Gee, who wants to bet he didn't actually fucking say that?
Well, Anne Bayefsky is a well-known entity amongst human rights defenders. She has made a career of attacking anyone who dares to criticize Israeli.
Davey, you have no fucking proof that Israel even, officially did think that there was someone there. All you have is some propaganda talking head saying, "Oh yeah, we thought there was a guy there." You have no evidence outside of a fucking propaganda mouthpiece, and you're speaking with 100% confidence.
Human rights violations in particular. I have responded to this idea of wiping Israel off the map by saying I'm not looking for an end to Israel. I'm looking for an end to apartheid. And it's very telling what Anne Bayefsky tweeted in her attack on me.
Isn't proving a negative impossible? So I have no proof that Israel did know or didn't know. Like I said before, you're playing semantics with people's lives. Whether it was, whether they were going after a fucking person or not. Oh, it wasn't deliberate. It's totally ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous to say that it's justified. You have no proof that Israel didn't target a specific terrorist. Yeah, but I'm not speaking with 100% confidence that I can speak with 100% confidence that civilians were killed. So that's not a mystery. It's bizarre, Davey. You're so desperate to keep alive this idea that there's a military solution, and this is exactly what I was talking about with Ukraine. With people just assuming that the template of a U.S. style military intervention is the winning template against terrorism, when there's just no evidence to that. There's just no evidence to that.
She accused me of anti-Semitism, and the quote that she took from my letter to prove that was my call for equal rights for Christians, Muslims, and Jews.
I give up. Davey,
I had to reply to her tweet by saying that she had become a parody of herself, because if calling for equal rights for Christians, Muslims, and Jews is a new form of anti-Semitism, then there's no conversation to be had. But I don't think people are falling for these smears anymore. They are almost automatic.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lenny. Like, it's this idea that this is a viable military tactic to blow up an entire refugee camp to get one guy. Send in the special forces. If you know where this guy's at, oh, we only had one chance. We had 5 seconds. We had to kill everybody. You only get one chance. Mom spaghetti. No, but you know what I mean? It's not a good tactic. It's not viable. Barack Obama is rightly criticized for blowing up wedding parties because a cell phone that was used by a terrorist was found there, and he's criticized for that, rightfully so, because it's a shitty, terrible, inhuman tactic. And it doesn't work, by the way. It doesn't fucking work, by the way. Because we got we did it all day and night to the fucking Taliban. Blew up wedding party after wedding party. Barack Obama did. They're running the place. It doesn't even work. It doesn't even fucking work. And we got guys defending this strategy to the fucking hilt. It doesn't even fucking work, man.
But the point needs to be made again and again that criticism of Israeli human rights violations is not anti-Semitic, just as criticism of Saudi violations is not Islamophobic. Criticism of Myanmar violations is not anti-Buddhist. Criticism of Indian violations is not anti-Hindu. If any of those are true, then there is no international human rights framework.
If the story about capturing bin Laden is to be true, there's a lot of fucking holes in that story, and I'm speaking as objectively as possible. There's a lot of holes in that story. Did you know Osama bin Laden had pancreatic cancer, and that if Osama bin Laden was alive when they claim Osama bin Laden was alive, that he would hold the world record for having pancreatic cancer the longest? You know, when you have pancreatic cancer, you have a deadline. There's a certain window of time that you're going to survive. Apparently Osama bin Laden was able to survive like a decade after every other person that's had pancreatic cancer. Anyway, conspiratorial shit. But if you are to believe the story about Obama or about bin Laden, whoa, Rush Limbaugh coming back from the dead. But no, if you are to believe that story, then yes, that's a great example of what I'm talking about. Yeah, if you were actually concerned with taking out this person, you would send in the special forces.
And if only the case of Israel is true, well, that's a racist proposition that only Palestinians can't have their human rights defended in this globe. So,
okay, I mean, then how come? Okay, Davey, I see what you're saying there. So explain to me why Israel doesn't tell the public, oh, that person that video of that IDF tank blowing up that car, oh, this individual was actually in that car. The hospitals that they confirmed that they did bomb before the one that they didn't bomb happened. Oh yeah, this guy was there. That guy was there. We had intelligence that this guy was there. They're not justifying all these strikes in the West Bank and in the southern Gaza. They're not saying, oh, there's targets every time. They're not specifying that.
I don't think anyone listens too much to those kinds of smears.
They don't bother
anymore. And luckily, people are speaking up louder, not lowering their voices to demand human rights in the occupied territories.
So what do you go off to do, Craig McIver? I mean, you've been at the United Nations for decades. Talk about your plans now. Today is your first day that you're not working at the UN.
Well, I intend to remain involved in the cause of
So Victor Spade, you're okay with, if say the shoe's on the other foot and we have a right-wing terrorist in the United States who is doing an active shooter event, and a group of cops come up and shower the area with bullets or even drop a bomb from a drone, and that ordinance kills some American kids and American families to take out that right-wing terrorist, that you'd be like, well, that's just the cost of doing business. If those civilians next to Hamas or next to that right-wing terrorist, if those civilians next to that terrorist didn't want to get killed, they should have left. It's the terrorist's fault that the cops, dropped bombs on him. You see what I mean? It's completely fucking ridiculous. Those people, they didn't know he was there. They didn't have any opportunity to leave. They were in a refugee camp, right? And we may or may not even being lied to about whether this guy was even there. Those people are not guilty of being they're guilty of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that collective punishment that Israel gave them for daring to be in the vicinity of Hamas is justified. You deserve to lose your life if you happen to be in the vicinity of a terrorist, and it's totally justified.
International human rights, in which I've been involved since 1980. In fact, there's no question about that. I will do it under my own name, unconstrained by diplomatic protocol and the constraints of the UN. I will continue to support my colleagues. I don't want to leave.
Davey, how are you going to feel after, in several months or maybe a year, when Hamas is still going strong, after all these leaders of Hamas have been taken out and the organization is still chugging along? How are you going to feel, man? Is there going to be any mea culpa? You're not going to learn any lessons? Oh, gee, maybe there isn't a military solution to this. Maybe we weren't able to, quote unquote, eliminate Hamas. It doesn't matter how many fucking Hamas leaders or terrorists we actually killed. There is no eliminating terrorism at the barrel of a gun. It does not work. Look at Ireland. Look at Ireland.
The impression that I'm criticizing the whole UN. You know, UN humanitarian workers, UN human rights workers, the UNRWA colleagues in Gaza, dozens of whom have lost their life just in the last couple of weeks under Israeli bombs, are doing absolutely heroic work all around the world. But I want to try to influence the political side of the House to take up a more realistic and principled approach to this particular conflict, one based in international human rights, one based in international humanitarian law, and one based in achievable goals, if not in the immediate term, of a paradigm based upon equality, an end to apartheid, and, as I said, equal rights for Christians, Muslims, and Jews.
I wanted to get your final response to the protesters just yesterday in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I agree,
in
Lenny.
the Senate, repeatedly disrupting Secretary...
No, fuck, you know what? Fuck Code Pink. We're not giving them any airline. Is that Barry Weiss, by the way? Is that Barry Weiss? Looking, whatever. Code Pink totally agrees with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But they got a problem with Gaza. I'm so sick of Code Pink. I'm so sick of Code Pink. No, we're not showing them. All right, last little bit of news here. Davies link, but there you go. I mean, that's, those are my opinions about that. I've interjected so many times, like, you get the gist of where I stand with that interview. It was a really good interview. But yeah, let's take a look how the invasion is going of northern Gaza. It looks like they're getting very close to the ocean. Yep. Like they're getting very, very close. So once again, so we all agree. So the goal is to get rid of Hamas. Okay, so what's the plan for southern Gaza? What's the plan for this part right down here? Oh, I hate this. I hate this. It was so much fun cheering on Ukraine, because it was like, that is a very clear, morally just war. There's nothing moral about this. This is so gray. This is so complicated. Yeah, Ukraine's in the right. Absolutely. And we're in the right to help them, even though our motivations for helping them are not right. Like, the only thing that gives me hope, the only thing that's giving me hope right now is the pushback, the legitimate pushback, and the acknowledgement of the pushback from the mainstream media. The mainstream media is having a hard time keeping this Israel as a victim narrative afloat. They're doing the best they can. Their defense, it's all defense, and then Israel blows up a fucking refugee camp, and they're like, I can't. There's nothing I can say about this that can defend this. Oh, well, there was a guy there. They said that maybe they killed him, maybe they didn't. It's all justified. So I am given some hope. I am given some hope that there is legitimate pushback to this mainstream narrative that, well, whatever, Israel's legitimate and whatever they're doing is legitimate and there's no question. You're not allowed to question it. I mean, technically Israel doesn't need any aid right now, military aid. They're fully stacked. Every year they get tens of billions of US dollars in aid for their military. They're one of the strongest militaries in the Middle East. They don't need anything, quite frankly. So yeah, the money there shouldn't be a fucking cent one going to Israel, but it's all about politics, right? It's so these politicians can say, vote for me, people that agree with Israel, vote for me. It's not about a legitimate need. It's not like Israel is going to be running out of weapons anytime soon. So I mean, it's just so depressing. It's just so depressing because I can't get behind Hamas. I have to make a nuanced argument that Hamas doesn't democratically represent the Gazan citizens. Oh, what about the pictures of people cheering? Yeah, that doesn't mean, there's I can show you images of the charlatan, or I can show you images of MAGA marches. Are you going to say, oh, all those people marching represent all of America? No, of course not. But somehow it's okay to do that for the Palestinians. Oh, well, those extremists marching in the street, they agree with Hamas. So everyone in the Gaza Strip agrees with Hamas. Except in 2018, there was a massive protest where Hamas opened fire on the protests to quell them against Hamas, protests against Hamas, because they're no longer holding elections. They're holding fucking the Gaza Strip hostage. I hate this. I really do. It's necessary because, like, without voices like mine, what would we have? Out of touch assholes like Hassan on Twitch making a tanky argument that this is somehow some resistance movement. A legitimate resistance movement would understand the value of propaganda. A legitimate resistance movement would understand how negative, how bad it's going to look when there's videos of us doing God knows what to children. It's not a serious. They're theocrats. They believe in a extreme religious government. Watched a video of a tank expert analyzing that footage of the tank firing on the car. He said the car was probably rigged to blow. Oh, well, okay, then, well. Well, there you go. Was it a tank expert from Israel? I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe it was blown up. We Americans ran into the same problem with the Taliban and ISIS in Iraq and Afghanistan, shooting up civilian vehicles because they weren't sure if they were, bombs or not. Lots of ambiguity there. Lots of ambiguity. It was loaded with fuel, attempting to deliver it to those who need it. I mean, you see, we have narrative and a counter narrative, and who do I trust? I don't know. Quite a coincidence that was being filmed by another following car. Sure. Whatever. Kill them all, huh? Just kill them all. I just watched a video of several children, dead children, getting pulled out of a rubble pile. Dead, floppy children getting pulled out of a rubble pile. And I got people in my chat telling me, well, that's just the cost of doing business. Well, that's just the, Israel's got to defend itself, and the only way to do it is to kill. You look like an itchy Nad. That's a good insult. That's a good one. My beard is a little itchy. And trigger happy tank shooting anything that moves. There was no reason to shoot the car. Well, they have standing orders to shoot on sight. Why are they using missile strikes for one guy? Collective punishment. It's okay. International law is not going to hold them to account. So, collectively punish away. Technically, Israel has been collectively punishing the Palestinians for around 50 years now. Israel has been collectively punishing the entire population of Palestine for decades. What's the difference? Gaza is legitimately an open air prison. Israel can literally cut off the water, electricity, and internet from the Gaza Strip. Talk about disparity. Talk about, power differentials. And once again, I'm not one of these leftists that says, it throws his hands up and says, oh, there's nothing we can do. There's no solution. It's all intractable. Give up. Embrace nihilism. No. If you are a leftist in the United States and you care about civilians, Palestinian civilians, and of course, Israeli civilians, Israeli IDF soldiers that are going to get killed in this conflict, if you care about those people, if you care about life, and you are a leftist in the United States, your goal is to pressure Joe Biden and the United States government to leverage its power over Israel to force Israel to come to the negotiating table. That is what you need to do. Stop. What do I do? What do I do? It's so complicated. It's so complicated. I get it. It is complicated. It's very like awkward and heady and like, I don't want to be here either. Okay. But if you want direction as an activist, as a person who cares about life, that wants to see this stop, do what you can. Political activism, engage in political activism against the United States government, pressuring the United States government to leverage its power over Israel to come to the table to really do some negotiating. That is the most realistic. The United States is the most realistic entity to be criticizing here. The United States has, number one, has the most leverage against the right-wing Israeli government right now. The United States has all the leverage. They have the cards. So if you want that target, if you want, like, who do I even go after? Who do I criticize? You criticize the Joe Biden administration and the U.S. government for its refusal to leverage its power over Israel to force that country to come to the negotiating table with the Palestinians. And that, by the way, includes removing some of the settlements. Yeah, I know, that's right. Yeah, Israel giving up some of the land that it stole. Oh, we didn't steal it. It's ours. It's ours. We shouldn't have to give back anything. That's the mentality that needs to be pushed back against by the U.S. government. No, we're not going to play that game. You do have to give up settlements. You do have to give back some land to the Palestinians because they don't have enough land to have a functional state anymore. Israel has succeeded in basically making Palestine as a country completely irrelevant and nearly impossible to actually exist. It is a matter of time for the Israeli project of the complete elimination of the Palestinian state. It is only a matter of time if nothing changes. And the United States has the power to change that. Davy's not wrong. Davy's not wrong. But where Davy is, not bringing it up, is that the United States is still technically beholden to its people, still technically beholden to the democracy that provides power to it. So if you are a leftist, if you are an activist on the left and you want to see change, I'm just telling you this is the most effective target. But Davy is correct. If Joe Biden and the United States government does not receive any pressure, that Davy's assessment is correct. It will never change. His name is good. Yeah, check it out, I guess. I'm skeptical that anyone from Kick wants to actually help me, but sure. Thank you. U.S. did pressure Israel to withdraw from Gaza in 2005. I think Israel is still dismantled in the process as took power. It's possible, Clutch Cargo. Thank you for making that point to show, as an example, it is absolutely possible. It is possible because the narrative from Israel is that all of this is inevitable, that there is no stopping this, there's no controlling this, this is natural, this is just what's going to happen. Wrong, Davey. Then you're basically admitting that democracy doesn't work in the United States. You're basically saying that the United States government is separated from its democracy and is no longer beholden to it. You're basically admitting that the United States and the military-industrial complex is an empire acting outside of the wishes of the American public. Biden's a moderate. Guys, did you know the moderate position is to allow an incredibly powerful country to victimize an incredibly weak country? That's the moderate position, guys. Apartheid is cool. That's the moderate position now. Geez, that Overton window, man, it's 300 miles in one direction, huh? That Overton window completely shifted. Now the moderate position is apartheid okay and basically inevitable, so acquiesce. Awesome. And guess what? Guess what? You have no choice as an American citizen, according to Davey. Democracy doesn't really matter, so don't even bother with political activism because you can't change anything. Sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you, Davey. I totally disagree with you, Davey. Have a good one, Lenny. In fact, I got to go as well. But, you know, I like to talk to everybody at the end of the stream to get your opinions and thoughts. I apologize to Davey for being the punching bag today, but you're saying a lot of ridiculous things. And I really do honestly hope you remember the statements that you were making today in 6 months, in a year. In 6 months, in a year, Davey. I want you to mentally take mental note of what you've been saying and what you believe right now. And please get back to me in 6 months to a year. And I would be interested to hear your new assessment. Punch me instead. Big props to Chem Goblin. Big props to Zeo Duke. Big fat fucking props to Davey for not being a coward in the chat. Thank you, Davey. Props to Woke Patriot. Props to Lenny. You know, garbage fuel awards for everybody. I'm not new to this. Yeah, well, maybe you should think about that. Make a bet as fellow sportsmen. What would the bet be? What would the bet be? Big props to Clutch Cargo. Withdrawing from Gaza didn't prove a two-state solution was possible. It proved in hindsight that withdrawal didn't bring any peace. That's incredibly reductive, Clutch Cargo. You know, that because that argument does not account for the individuals that did not want that to work. There was an entire right-wing element that did not want negotiations to work, that did not want to give back any settlements. You know, that argument does not account for the element that wanted to destroy that and was successful in destroying that process. Jaguars in the Super Bowl, really? Okay. Anyone else? Kissing Gonzo, big props to you. Garbage Fuel Award for sure. Kissing Gonzo. Murflif. Thank you, Murflif. Big props to you. Thank you for being here. Opinionated guy. Is that the guy that I banned like a month ago? Is that the guy? Is this armed with my opinions? Is opinionated guy armed with my opinions? Remember that asshole? Without a blockade, yeah. Thank you, Woke Patriot, for making that point. Like Israel's an honest actor, guys. Israel's an honest actor. It just didn't work out. It just didn't work out because the Palestinians ultimately don't want peace because they're animals. No, and I'm not saying Clutch Cargo is saying that, but I am really tired of this canard, this incorrect information that Israel has been an honest actor throughout this negotiating process. Meanwhile, Israel has never accepted the existence of Palestine. Yes, that's a fact. They've accepted the existence of the PLO, but never accepted the existence of Palestine. So no, it's a lie. It's a lie that Israel has been an honest actor throughout this process, as if they're just waiting for an honest actor to come out of Palestine to make a real negotiation. They don't want a real negotiation. They want the whole country. They want the whole thing. And yeah, dump those people in Jordan, dump those people in Egypt. It's the Arab countries can deal with Arab people problems. That's what's going on. And if you don't believe me, listen to Ben Gvir, number 2 in the Israeli government right now. Ben Gvir. Look up his statements. Do an academic deep dive into Ben Gvir and come back to me and tell me that the goal isn't the complete elimination of the Palestinian people. Number 2 in government right now. Look up Ben Gvir, haters. He's proud of it. He's proud of it. All right, everybody. Let's not forget that 3-step program to create political change so that we can pressure Joe Biden. It's just this easy. If you're a leftist and you want to change this situation, well, how do I even go after Joe Biden? How do I go after the U.S. government? This is how. Step 1, you inform yourself, which is what you did today. So you're already done with step 1. Step 2 is that you join a progressive political organization in your area. Obviously, you don't want to join a leftist organization that's defending Hamas. But there are plenty of leftist organizations that are capable of distinguishing between Hamas as a terrorist organization and Palestinians as civilians. Find them, they exist. Use Google. You use Google to find booty pictures, okay? Google's a very powerful tool for pornography, and I assure you it's a very powerful tool for political change as well. Because step 3, you got to put in the work. Okay, a couple tweets and a couple Facebook posts ain't gonna do it, Slick. You got to get in the streets. You got to get involved. Oh, I don't want to get in the streets. Then you better be making posters. Oh, I don't want to make posters. Then you better be fucking making a phone call. I don't want to make a phone call. Well, then you better be donating. You need to ask yourself, what am I doing for the political left movement? You know, once a month. What am I doing? How am I helping the left movement? How am I giving my energy? Just once a month. Couple hours a month. What am I doing for the activist movement? If we get 10 to 20% of leftists to become as activated as I just described, we can change the world. It's not hyperbolic. It is democracy. And it is powerful. Why do you think the authorities go after democracy and quash it? Why do you think they did what they did with Occupy Wall Street? Because it is a threat to the status quo. It is a threat to their power. It works. It works. The 3-step program to create political change works. So peace in that motherfucking Middle East and glory to the Ukrainian democracy. We're going to win this one, folks. Somehow, some way, by hook or by crook. We're going to win this one. We have to. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. It's the News Underground. It's the motherfucking News Underground. Keeping it so real it hurts. It hurts. Thank you, Clutch Cargo. Garbage Fuel Award to Clutch Cargo and all you lurkers. Garbage Fuel Award to you. Thank you, lurkers, bringing that view count up. Thank you, lurkers. I agree, Clutch. We'll see you next time. News Underground. News Underground. Tell your mother. News Underground. Tell your father. News Underground. Tell your grandma. News Underground.